up rant because it's fairly, it's not something that's really awful, but it's a good thing to rant about.
Okay.
And that is, what is the best way that the Avs can get value out of the later rounds this year? And the choices for that answer were go safe and bet on progress. The Avs are in a good spot and don't need to take chances. The second answer was high ceiling, low floor. They've got volume this year, so go for it. And the third answer was I'd take an axe murderer that coaches despise if it means getting an NHLer out of the sixth round. And our loyal survey contestants overwhelmingly chose the middle one, which was high ceiling, low floor, and only a few picked the go safe button. Um, and I think that's pretty representative of how we feel about
I would say C. I mean, at this point, if they got an NHL player from the sixth round,
it. Yeah.
you
Um,
it's just
I I mean, obviously these were somewhat jokey answers, but um, the third answer would be sort of selling out sort of your values or your organizational goals just to get a player. And
I
I think that's an interesting question to go for.
I would still say yeah. They're gonna need to get value moving forward if they're gonna ever start spending more. Have to be choosier with their money. They're not gonna just be able to go out and get a Calvert because you can't develop that. Um, I talked a little bit about in my article kind of safe isn't necessarily the type of player someone is, it's kind of also where they're from. And if you want a guy from the low rounds that plays, I think you need to look at someone that's already playing professional and say Europe, maybe someone that can do like a Lindholm. You can bring him in, he'll be older. You could probably get NHL games out of that. I guess you could also say that's a low ceiling, high floor kind of thing, but I think it's not so much the player. You just have to think about who would the Avs actually play.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, there's two ways to be risky. I mean, you can be risky and just sort of like, someone that's just not a very stable, character or situation or whatever. And there's risk in just sort of like, this guy could, this guy could be the worst player in the ECHL, or he could actually contribute at the NHL level. I mean, I'm more comfortable with that kind of risk than I am sort of taking chances on situations you're not really, really comfortable with.
Well, I definitely wouldn't necessarily want to go down the road of like really bad character or something, but at this point, did they just need to totally lotto ticket that stuff? And I think it's interesting that it's the CHLers who they seem to hate now are the late round picks that they sign. I guess you could say all they have is an AHL ceiling.
I mean,
Well,
I think we all agree that what happened last year with the Russians was that was a good way to take some risk and have enough upside that it might actually work.
well, you don't care if those guys take a little bit longer. I mean, the CHL guys, you got to sign what 2 years, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
in Saigon or whatever, right away.
Or not.
So I mean,
um,
like those 6 round guys are going to go to the AHL, and they're just unless they blew up, they're just not going to play. So it's like, well, what's the point? I guess
yeah,
you
I
might
mean,
as well. Kovalenko is like the perfect example of what they should keep doing.
I mean, the problem is they need AHL bodies.
Yeah, they've gone so far the other way into the stash territory that they have like nobody to sign in the
And
next couple
I
years.
guess it's like maybe they just keep signing AHL veteran bums instead, but that
Or a
doesn't
O'Connor
feel
or an
great.
O'Connor every year.
I don't see them ever getting an O'Connor again because how they got so many of those guys is they say, "Look at how bare our NHL roster is. You'll get games." And now they can't offer that opportunity anymore for those college kids.
Or people were like, look at Kerfoot, but then that was
look at
like once.
Toninato. Yeah. No, there's definitely a flip side to it because I mean, you could sell the Kerfoot never playing an AHL game, but you can also look at Toninato. Like, why was he in the AHL most of this year?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, in that area, there's just such little separating all the players, but it's so tough to really find an angle where you can maybe do better than average, which average isn't good, but the Avs have to at least be hitting average or better than average at some point, hopefully.
I hope they're able to continue getting the college guys, just because having someone that's Toninato's age yet waiver exempt is sort of a perfect scenario for filling out some of the older players you want in the team, because I don't want 10 guys that are under 21 on the team. I don't think that's healthy. I think, it's good to have a mix of guys 20, 21, 22, 23. One way to get that is to be able to have guys that are waiver exempt.
And the Russians are perfect. They have the rights forever, so that's one bonus
do they
you
still
have
have
there.
that Parshin?
Yep, they still have his rights.
Batman's announcing a bunch of rule changes right now.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my goodness.
I
Some of
said
these
all
are
the
ridiculous.
stupid review stuff.
Well, one of them is puck shot on goal from outside the red line. If goalie freezes the puck, no line change. I'm assuming that's the goalie's team.
Yeah.
That's going to cost Varley a couple $1 million
rest in
this
peace,
summer.
Varley.
Yeah. So they're calling that delay of game, which is essentially what icing is.
Yeah, and then if the player loses their helmet, they have to go to the bench or put it on immediately. I guess that's is that college hockey does that, I think.
IIHF rules, yeah.
Yeah.
The AHL's been doing that for a couple of years. It doesn't. I mean, it honestly. I've really never seen a situation where it was like, oh God, if he had just been able to keep his helmet on, something terrible wouldn't have happened. I mean, it's pretty rare.
Yeah.
The goalie just being able to randomly lose his helmet, I think, is more of a problem.
Yeah, that's kind of funny, isn't it? But I don't know. I mean, I understand how having something tight to your head probably isn't the best thing too. So maybe it's just the way it's designed, it kind of has to be like that. But it looks awful easy for them to shake it off.
I mean, getting back to the question, if you, what is it? The idea now is that the more picks, the better. So if you keep trading back, accumulating picks, you can kind of do a little bit of everything. So obviously, if the Avs can continue to kind of accumulate picks, then they can, take chances while also being safe a little bit. So I don't know. They seem to have more picks these next 2 years, so maybe they're going to take a little bit more chances or switch it up a little bit.
I'm definitely more of a fan of the spray and pray draft method for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think once you get past the 50th pick, especially, there might be more hype with some guys, but I think your talent level is probably fairly close, and it's more you're differentiating guys on how well you know them compared to the other clubs.
So Cletus is asking, how much do you even value drafting guys to fill out your AHL roster?
Versus what? Like just
Scrubbos?
Right.
I mean, it's a function of being a NHL franchise. I mean, you need a place to have players that aren't quite ready for the NHL.
Exactly.
So.
The concept is you do that with enough guys and one of them eventually hits, right?
Yeah.
Right.
As long as you call them up.
For most organizations, yeah.
Yeah.
Zing.
It is an interesting philosophical question if you want to think of it that way. If you think the Avs will never get anything out of the low round guys,
what do you think's worse? Is drafting guys and signing them even though that there's just no prayer, or drafting those guys in the first place?
I would see, the thing is, I consider like signing a Baron as a good thing. Like, if you draft a 7th rounder and you sign him, I think you're at least getting something out of him.
Yeah.
rather than Olhaver, who contributed nothing and then let his rights go.
Well, Colin
So-
Smith was like the perfect 7th rounder. Like
Right,
you get a
really
good player who,
AHL player.
maybe he's not going to be an AHL player, but he really helps your AHL team.
So yeah,
that's
I do think there's
that's why I
value
kind of
in
like
that.
some overagers when you're looking at guys, especially like once you get really far, like 6th and 7th round. 'Cause you can be a little more sure, and you still technically have 2 years to leave them in amateurs, even if they're in the CHL.
The thing with drafting late rounders is they all are going to need help unless you just win the lottery, right? There's no magical where you can consistently draft 5th, 6th, 7th rounders from any league that are expected to make the NHL.
I mean, what went right with Kovalenko? I mean, what was it about him falling to the 6th round that the Avs, was it risky for them to take him, or did they know something that the other teams didn't, or
They knew his
what was
last
the
name.
driving force? I mean, yeah, they knew his dad real well, but
I mean, realistically, it's the fact that they're not afraid of getting Russians over at all anymore.
I would
But if you
bet.
take,
I
Go
mean,
ahead.
most teams probably. Well, doesn't his dad like own one of the teams, or he's like running one of the
He's
teams?
the
They probably
Players
thought that.
Association leader for the K.
Yeah, I mean, they probably just assumed they could never get him over. I mean, maybe they just didn't do any background things like that. So, I mean,
the Avs didn't even pick him until the 6th round. So, I mean, when you look at what he accomplished this year, after being drafted, you're kind of like, well, I mean, obviously in a redraft he'd go much higher. So, I mean, it's like I'm not sure if the Avs really knew what they were getting drafted.
Players or teams hate drafting out of Russian juniors too. You see it. There are Russians that play in the KHL that go fairly high, and then most of the kids that play in the MHL are just not even on half the team's radars.
I think that is a new thing where teams are even willing to draft from the MHL. Because you look at like Tarasenko and Kuznetsov. I mean, they were drafted when they were playing in the KHL. And then the other thing is, like, the international tournaments are huge for being able to see these Russians. And Kovalenko wasn't at any of them. He wasn't like a tournament darling that was part of all these things like the Super Series and on and on. And like Zhiravilov, he was at 4 different international tournaments last year. So you can figure out pretty quickly that's where the Avs came up with that idea. But Kovalenko was at none, so that's why I think it was more of a legacy pick, and they got lucky that he's pretty good.
Well, I mean, they obviously beefed out their infrastructure. I mean, having Gusarov as a coach in Sochi, and then
and sure, that helps too. I mean, yeah, the more resources you put there, the more that they know
because
that these players.
you really want access to these players before you. I mean, I don't know. I mean, do you think the Avs talked to Schmackhoff before they drafted him?
I don't think so.
But
I'd be shocked if anybody saw him live.
But I think they probably, they were able to talk to Kovalenko and Zhuravlov, probably to some extent between Gusarov and Valery Kamensky's son working for them. And I think that's important if you're drafting out of the MHL. With the KHL, it's a fairly known quantity. It's a comparable. You can sit there and say, all right, this is how youngsters generally play in the KHL, and you're not scared off by the 5 minutes per game and then only having 6 points in 40 games. But with the MHL, I think you're right. You're just you need to be able to talk to the player or talk to the coaches, have access to all that knowledge, and just some teams don't have that infrastructure.
So I'm really interested to see if they're ready then to use a top 100 pick on a Russian. If they feel like they've built up enough of a pipeline and the things to see if they're comfortable kind of putting a bigger asset and seeing if that can work.
That's a big step. Just because it went really well for 1 year, I'm not sure if they're going to be, ready to really throw down like that.
I wouldn't
Um,
say 1 year. I mean, getting Miranov to sign, getting Igor to sign. It has
That's
been a
true.
several year type of thing.
That's
I'm
true.
not.
I'm selling it a little short.
Are you just saying top 100 because Miranov was 101?
Well, I mean,
I'm not sure
hey,
they
top
see the
80.
advantage that way, though. I think they see their Russian pipeline advantage as there's going to be a bunch of Russians that no one drafts because they're afraid to draft Russians, so they can get them in the later rounds.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I was hoping is that they waited to take Danny Z and Kovalenko because they knew that they were unknowns to everyone.
But I'm just saying there's a difference between drafting them in the 5th and 6th round and, say, drafting someone in the 2nd round.
But if
there's a big difference there.
Why would you draft someone in the 2nd round if you know you could get them in the 5th? Is what I'm
well,
saying.
okay, let's say someone better.
I don't know. In a redraft, Kobe would probably go in the 2nd round. So
I would say so. Yeah. From our good friend Tempestuous Bednary, or Binary, as he was also. Let's predict the unknown Russian that the Avs are going to pick in round 5 through 7. Are there any leading candidates?
God, I
that you
try
guys
to
have seen?
think of that. I'm going with the goalies.
Yeah.
I
Pyotr
could just
Kochkov or whoever.
Well, he'll probably go higher. He's the number 1 ranked European goalie. Like Konovalov, the one that plays for Lokomotiv.
Yeah, a lot of people like him in the late rounds. We had
Or the
several.
Miftakov wasn't drafted last year. This is probably my guess.
People don't seem to like him much.
He's been inconsistent. I don't know. Both of those guys are small, so it's probably an automatic nope for the Avs. But I wouldn't say that anybody really
Frank's
jumped out
pretty
at me.
small.
Well, I mean, Frank's old, so that mitigates small.
Yeah, they know he's good, but I mean, I'm not sure with the pad reduction that being small is as bad as it was, say, 3 or 4 years.
I think it's fine, but until the Avs draft a 6-foot goalie.
But I think you're right. I think probably I think the goalies probably make the most sense in this range.
I mean, I like Spiridonov, but I don't know. So you could even argue that he's like a 2nd rounder, but since he's Russian,
yeah,
who
he was
knows?
a guy that people had him in several different spots in their suggestions.
Who's the Russian goalie, the draft eligible that is tearing it up that Jeremy was talking about? It's like 19 or 20. You could be making up a name for all I know. I have no idea. But he was, I think he started in the KHL this year, and he was talking about how some teams might look at him just because he's closer to being ready.
Is that the Lokomotiv goalie?
I think he's 20 is what he said. I wish I could find it now. But
you might be talking about Konovalov, the one that played for Lokomotiv.
I don't know. I mean,
there could be another.
With goalies, I mean, Grubauer is not a big guy. I've stood next to him. He is not big. So, I mean, they're going to have a pretty small tandem next year. So, I mean, I'm trying to think of who was. I mean, there's more small goalies. Well, I guess there's big goalies too. But, I mean, if you can move, it doesn't really matter. I mean, how big is Schmakov? Because I know the Finnish goalie. I'm not even going to try to pronounce these names. But he's huge.
Yeah, he's 6'4".
Makov's even bigger.
Yeah, he's like 6'6". He just like leans over in the net. He doesn't even really crouch. He actually has to like lean over.
The Geico Walrus commercial.
Basically, yeah.
And Werner's quite large. He's 6'5". And even Spencer Martin, he's listed at 6'3". I think he's probably closer to 6'4", but he's a fairly large guy. And it's just interesting to see, all those young guys like that, and then they sort of end up with two smaller guys in the NHL.
Yeah, I found it. It's the locomotive goalie. Yeah.
Okay.
Konovalov. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting with the Avs because we've seen them. They've become less afraid to take smaller forwards in the later rounds.
Yeah.
But with goalies, they still seem to fall back on that. Oh, if he's not talented enough to go in the top 100, just pick a big guy.
I swear to God, Olhaver, Ben Storm, and Shmakov were all drafted because it said 6'7" or whatever.
I'd rather it be a goalie than a position player.
True.
I would too.
True.
Oh man, Olhaver was so bad.
Yeah.
And then
he was always
he scored in that first prospect tournament. I was like, what the hell?
He always had one move that you didn't expect, but that was like it.
I mean, when you come over to play in the WHL and you're a healthy scratch, it's not a good sign.
And then they trade you.
Sorry, some of our listener suggestions here for guys that aren't Russian but late round Magic. Mark Del Gaizo is a guy that I've been kind of eyeing just because I watched a lot of UMass this year. I think he's, for a 5th, 6th, or 7th round pick, I think he's got enough upside that you might just get something out of him.
Yeah, I don't think it's a terrible idea.
I mean, he's overage. You kind of know what you're getting. He's only got 3 years left, so you do have a finite time to sign him.
No more overagers in the late rounds. That's my vote.
Really?
That's their favorite.
Yeah, they take overagers and then do nothing with them.
I'm not talking Brett Leeson, he was also a suggestion.
He's not going to be that far down the list. So
yeah, exactly. Okay, let's go with another small-ish defenseman and Fensore from the NTDP.
Oh, I don't think he's going that late. There's a lot of guys that are slated for like 3rd, 4th, 5th round. And if they're there in the 6th or 7th, you're like, okay, the talent's
I don't even know about that. Like, I'd be super wary of guys from the NTDP that are fallers because those are the guys you worry about that are getting carried.
Yeah, like...
and that no one's taken them early and that no one bought it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched a bunch of the shift by shifts that you did on the NTDP guys over the past week or two. Fensore, he stuck out as a guy that, you'd see him and be like, oh, that's some pretty skilled play, and then you sort of see Cam York doing the same stuff but better, and you're like, okay, so that's why you take Cam York higher and be happier about it.
And he's like 5'7".
Yeah, he's real small. Anthony Honka was a suggestion here. I don't think he'll make it down this far.
Yeah, if he's there in like the 4th, I think you have to take a chance on him. I'd take a chance on him in the 2nd, but I know I'm aggressive about that.
Someone I'm not familiar with named Bergeron, obviously not the center for the Bruins.
Okay, yeah, I know who that is.
Yeah.
He's from Rouyn-Noranda. He's an overage, but his birthday's like September 14th. So this was kind of like his year that he played a lot of minutes, and he's a good puck mover. He'll probably get drafted. He's got some of the analytics folks excited. He has good numbers, so he'll probably get drafted in the late rounds.
Nolan Meyer was a suggestion here, and he also was a guy that showed up on anywhere from the 2nd to 7th.
I haven't paid attention to any North American goalies this year. When the Avs take one, then I'll start to care.
Yeah,
Until then, I'm not wasting
Dustin Wolf was
time.
in here too, which I
I
think
don't
he'll
know
probably
any.
go earlier.
I mean,
I honestly don't know any difference between these guys. So if they take one, then I'll look into it.
trying to predict
And
where goalies go is just impossible.
yeah,
Every
I mean, even when you're looking at the at the central scouting lists, you're just sort of like,
every
this
year
isn't.
it's just a run. Like someone
Yeah.
takes a goal play and then every team panics like, oh god, we got to start taking them.
Yeah, it's like the runs and either like there's one in the third and then there's like another one in the sixth. Everyone's like, okay, we got to take one now.
We've got our third round goalie. We need to get our sixth round goalie now. It's so true. I think there was a good run in the seventh last year as well. You do see a lot of people as well. Let's get out of here. Let's take the goalie. I had a I had a guy I liked, but I can't find his name. Oh, here he is. Andrei Senichka from the Czech under. I watched a little bit of film on this guy, and he's interesting. He scores a lot, which is not that out of the ordinary for the Czechs. But I I saw some talent here. He's actually not an overager, but he's large. He's 6'5" and 200 pounds, and has some scoring ability. That's the kind of thing I could take in a later round. He's not Oliver or anything like that. Looks like he definitely has some skill.
See, you say you don't know these late round guys, but see, you've done some digging. You're starting to get the itch that we do.
I don't have time to do it like you guys do, so I basically have to fall ass backwards into stuff like this.
Still?
It's just someone will catch my eye, and then I'll dive in.
You don't just fall ass backwards into Czech under 19 hockey play. You have to go out and find that.
I know. I wish I remembered how I came up with his name. It just you fall down a wormhole. It's like a scouting report leads to some YouTube videos and some weird tweets and languages you don't understand, and there you are. All right. Well, I think we've covered that fairly well. Why don't we move up a little into the third round, which the Avs have 2 picks, and this is where a lot of people are starting to ask, is this where we trade down? Is it almost a given that they should trade down from one of these picks to get some volume?
I think they might end up going the other way. But
Yeah, I was gonna say I think they might use it to trade anything.
And that's an interesting thing with the question that I asked. Like, which kind of trades do you want to see? Do you want to see a consolidation trade down for volume, a fair value trade for a player, or trade Barry? And I figured that trading down and trading Barry would be the number one answers, but by far the biggest, actually close to 50% of people actually checked off the consolidation to move up box, which, it seemed kind of wild a week ago, but now that we see where the draft is shaking out, it seems like there's probably some good opportunities to move up, and where they're picking, there might be some dead zones where they.
For me, I look at the 16 and the 47 as more picks that they should go either way. The thirds, I don't know how much you're going to be able to unless a team's really asking for it.
Yeah, I mean, why did Pittsburgh want our third round pick last year? It just, that trade for Pittsburgh doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But
if you feel like a guy, if you know a team right before you likes a guy, you just want to take him. It didn't really cost him much. That's one reason why certain teams have a lot of extra picks. I forget who it was, but someone has like 3/5, and it's like that's exactly why you have 3/5. I think it was Montreal or something. I don't know, but anyway, if you have 3/5, that's the team that's probably looking at, well, just use one of these when we want to move up and take someone. And it seems like the Avs are more the kind of
because you don't want to pick 3 guys in the 5th round, really.
yeah, that's a little weird. It's like the Avs are more the let the draft come to us.
Yeah.
We'll just take whoever we like the best at that point. But
Montreal's weird though. They're the team that's like, sure, you can have our 5th this year for your 5th next year, every single year.
That's how I used to play Eastside Hockey Manager. I don't want to make this.
I mean, I could also see something like if the Avs just aren't wild about the third round in general, they'll try to get their third back from Florida for next year. That might be nice.
It's a thought, but I think because they don't have the fourth, and those thirds are fairly high. Well, obviously the Ottawa one's high, and theirs is fairly high. I think they need to think about getting actual players there. I think there's a good opportunity.
I just struggle to see them holding on to both, like especially if you're looking at. I think on the last 2A we brought up throw a third at Arizona to jump Montreal if you want New Hook or something. I think you're getting more equity that way.
Sure, that's why I think 47 and 16 you might look at moving either way. They are kind of a weird spot where you think it's a good spot if you get some really good fallers, but it's not the greatest spot to have a bunch
you're basically
of them.
You're looking at the Sampo Ranta range, which we all like Sampo Ranta. He's a great guy and everything. Do you need 2 of them?
I still say yes because you don't have your fourth. So
I wish
when you look at what's available there in the third, and then when you look back when you get to the 5th, it will be vastly different.
Yeah.
I don't mind the Sampo Ranta thing though, because if you're gonna take a bet on skill in the 3rd round, that's fine.
Yeah, he was fine. I like Sampo.
Our listeners overwhelmingly wanted Mad Silgard in the 3rd round, which I would too. I think that's a little optimistic.
Yeah, if he gets there, I'd be perfectly happy to take him.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would.
Sounds like
Silgard's
a
still
Bond
around.
villain.
He's even got the weird O in his name.
Yeah. And we had a bunch of people. Kochikov was popular. Dorofeev, your buddy Kajkovic.
If you're advocating for Honka, I can advocate for Chaykovich.
Oh, sure. You can advocate. I'll disagree with you, but...
and to that end, Honka also had some supporters here. What are the strengths in this round? Like, what should we really be looking at? Aside from if Mad Sogard is going to fall here. I mean, what are the strengths in this area?
I'd say it's the goalie run round, which I honestly am not even sure they need to take a high goalie this year. But I know I'm a goalie hater, so
I'd be fine with Sogard at 47 or 63, honestly. But beyond him, if you have to take one, take it with your secondary third. The one at 63.
I agree. They did that last year.
You're looking at someone with skill at 63. I think there's a good chance there'll be a decent defenseman there, and the Avs are probably going to need to stock the cupboards a little bit. So if you're seeing someone fall off the table a little bit, maybe like who was I thinking of? I'm not sure.
Who's the Czech goalie that I like that you guys laughed at?
Perpik or something? It starts with a P.
Lucas something. All right, where is it?
We got to pull up all of our lists.
Yeah. Well, I'll say the third is...
Lucas Parik.
Yeah. I'll say the third is the QMJHL party. That's where you take all the ones that should go higher but don't.
I don't know if there's going to be a big Q party ever.
Like Alexandrov, I think Legare is going to go in the third. I think he would be a good pick at 63. I think that's where you're going to find your favorite QMJHL player.
Fair.
I think that's
Well, the Avs ever draft a Q player again, though.
I was going to say, I just, until they do, someone brought up that, what was it, 2015 was the last time they selected a QMJHL player?
Yeah, I wouldn't say the OHL and WHL have done much better since then,
No.
though.
They have at least a few, though.
Yeah, they selected Sajin last year. No.
My boy Hustle Hank.
I think they like the WHL. I mean, obviously Sakic would have fond memories of the WHL, except for the bus crash. But it's just that's kind of a morbid thing to say. I'm sorry, but
Those were the days. Jeez.
This also might be the Russian. If you're gonna take ones you don't think will fall, like let's say Dorofeyev. Like I don't think you're gonna count on getting him in the 5th round.
If
you wanna
Dorofeyev's
take-
there at 63, you just slam dunk that.
Yeah, this is probably where you need to think about the higher end MHLers, Dorofeyev, maybe Spiridonov. Probably need to take him in the 3rd.
What about Dorofeyev makes him such a player that people have from anywhere the mid first all the way down to no man?
It's really perplexing. Yeah, you usually don't see such an insane range. I think it has to do with because he was a late birthday and he just wasn't at all the international tournaments, so he falls into like the Kovalenko bucket as far as exposure.
Yeah.
And I think people agree the skill levels higher end, but no one's seen him. Like, how comfortable are you drafting him?
Right.
Well, talk about what he is. What kind of player is he?
He's a more of a cerebral player. So like the biggest knock on him is probably his pace. Not that he's slow, but I think he is a player that likes the big ice. So you can kind of see a player like Podkolzin will play better on smaller ice. I think Dorofeyev is going to be more of like an adjustment period, but he's smart. He's a good playmaker. He's a good shooter. Like,
think of
the
him
skill level's high end
as an inverse Igor. He's like Igor, but instead of pass first, he's a shooter.
He's like Igor
Okay.
plus Grigo, and I know I still like Grigo, so to me that's not an insult. I'm not saying he's just stuck on the perimeter and has no intensity, but I think his strengths fall more into that direction.
All right, and my pick to click in the 3rd round would be Henri Nikkanen from Finland.
You've been watching too much Utah.
It's actually from the Hawkeroo on White Sox games, but
That the Utah announcer does that every game too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It drove me crazy.
But yeah, my guy here is Henri Nikkanen. He's a.
I don't know if he gets to the 3rd, but I'd be for it.
Okay. I thought he might have to fall a little bit, but he looks. I watched a little bit of him and was impressed. He had a very good under 18. So.
It's possible. I do think that 63 pick could be a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I keep forgetting. The 63 is basically a late 2nd, right? So.
I mean, it's the first pick in the 3rd round. So
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's
You could hope
if
for
there
maybe
are
like
guys that are still falling, then that's a good chance to scoop one up.
Definitely, like even if a Holmstrom or something like that gets there, get a good faller.
All right. Any last thoughts on the 3rd round? What?
No.
I think we're good.
The part that you want to avoid with Ranta in the 3rd round is no more like 3 to 4 year projects. Get something you can get in your organization pro within a couple years.
Are you saying Ranta will not be that?
Yes. I don't think we're signing him after next season unless he just explodes.
He could do
I think when people say you want to bet on talent, on upside, he's like the guy you're talking about. I think it's a little bit funny that he isn't more liked, I guess you could say, because he's like the pick that people want.
Yeah,
it's just
I don't know about that.
If you're talking about upside,
he has the
pick. Like such a-
upside, but people want upside without that big of a glaring issue across his entire game, and I understand there are going to be significant issues no matter what when you're drafting in the third round, but Sampos is really easy to pick on.
I think the way you reviewed his season is fairly hopeful, though. Rudo is
It
just
is.
sort of.
I still like him. I still
know.
think he can be a good quality player with NHL potential, but
But I mean, I think it seemed like he learned a lot just because, he he had the disappointment with not making the finished team. He sort of was down in the dumps for a while, got scratched, and then he kind of finished strong, and that's hopeful. So that's hopefully that's the guy
right.
we early
Exactly.
He's definitely one where you don't need a ton of fan wanking to think if he hits, he could be like an actual NHL player.
right.
Yeah.
It's
Plus he
just
blew up Cam Morrison, and that's fun.
but he's just one of those players that you have to understand what he is, and no matter how good he gets, the defensive zone is never going to be something that you like.
All right. Well, moving on to the second round and pick number 47. I'll let you guys guess. What do you think was the number one answer for our survey answerers?
You mean name?
47?
Yeah. I'll give you a hint. It's a legacy pick.
Oh God.
So
well, there's only
Nolan.
one.
It must be Nolan, yeah.
Nolan Foote.
He'd be okay at 47. I definitely wouldn't say he'd be my hope.
I don't want anything to do with him. I think you're just asking for depression if you would take him.
I do too. I don't think it'd be fair to him, just because he's not going to be at the level of his dad, and he plays a different position. I just think the expectations would be so huge. When people would see him in camp or preseason or something like that, it just I just think it'd be very tough for him. I'm not really in love with his game either.
As I said on two-way, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That the best part would be that they can't screw him because he's a legacy kid. The worst part would be that we would have to employ that they would have to employ Adam Foote at some point again.
You don't think
because he's going to need something to do. Tampa?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're too smart for that. No. There's a reason why he left and went to Kelowna, because they probably already told him to kindly remove himself from Syracuse.
Yeah, I just I think it even if he wasn't Adam Foote's son, I don't think I'd be really in love with his game much at 47.
I agree with that also. I think there's a little bit of nostalgia coloring to that pick.
And that's that's fine. I mean, I would say to anyone that's sort of feeling that just wait till Forsberg's kids get ready for the draft and start really going for it.
That would be even worse. Oh my god.
The second most popular pick was Alex Vlasic.
No. I would rather have Foote than Vlasic. No on Vlasic. No.
I was very interested to see that Vlasic moved up to number 29 in Big Bob's list at the end.
Hey, they're all high. They can do it. Someone wants to go there. Good for them.
I wouldn't mind Vlasic much later in the draft, mainly because he's going to go to BU, and I'd get to listen to Bernie Corbett and the Teddy Peanut Butter penalty box and like that. But
they could take like Master Simone in the third, and you could still watch BU.
Yeah, you're right. They're options, and I think I'm just having Josh Anderson work out the way he did this year should make them really gun shy about this type of player.
Yeah.
This year? You mean every year?
No, but I mean, it was going to be different this time, Evan. I mean,
He was going to cross the blue line.
And it was funny, how we used to say that like you could never see Josh when you were watching his games because he was
Yeah,
off
you
camera.
can't.
And I was watching some of the shift by shifts, and Vlasic was the same way. It's just like it's like Rudo's showing this, so he's got to be on the ice.
Yeah, I hate shift by shifting those defensemen. It's awful. It's like you're clipping their shift, and 40 seconds go by, and you come back, and it's 50-50 if they're still on the ice back there. You just don't even know.
The third most popular answer was a trade, which we'll get into this a little more when we get down to number 16. I do think it, given this is who we're talking about, that there's an opportunity perhaps to use this pick in a better way.
I think if they use a third to move up at 16, then they can accumulate again by dropping back a little bit.
Yeah, I like that idea too.
Yeah, I just, I mean, it's going to depend on what kind of firepower you need to get up to where you need to be. Whether you
are you trying
need
to get up
one
to
of the
like
thirds.
11 or something
Right.
instead of 14.
Exactly. So it's I think any of these second, third picks will be in play for that. It's just going to depend on what they need at the time. After that, we've got a smattering of guys that are pretty cool. Like Ryan Johnson, I don't think he'll be left at 47. He seems to be fairly popular now, but I definitely wouldn't mind him at 47.
Well, that's the thing about the second round, especially if you go back and look at like last year. There were a ton of guys that were still there at 47 specifically.
And that's kind of what when I was thinking, I was like, all right, if it's Johnson, or I kind of like Kalkinen a little bit.
No, hard pass on that.
Well, I didn't watch him very much, so
Korzak is the way to go.
But it's just like those guys seem to be, more 30s than 40s, just from what you hear on various mocks and stuff like that.
It does kind of go both ways. Like a lot of the favorites go early, but then some fallers you don't expect are there.
Yeah,
so there's
probably going to be 2 or 3 guys that are sort of name brand, like you're pretty sure they're going to go right around 30 or so, and then they'll probably still be around here. So it's it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Name brand. The Avs will pick the Kroger brand.
That's like Beecher. Just say no to Beecher. If you want Beecher, then
they'll get the bag.
Beecher
of
was fairly popular in this area, yes.
Oh, then go get some Logan O'Connor highlights to satisfy if you want Beecher.
I don't get that comparison at all.
I do.
Beecher's like 6'3". O'Connor's a midget compared to him.
Really fast, no offense, fourth liner.
Right, but he has the size to actually function as a fourth liner, unlike O'Connor.
He can hurt people.
Connor's not like 5'10" either.
Yeah, but Beecher looks like a behemoth next to him.
All right, talk to me about Grew. Is that how you say it? Grewe?
I've watched a little. It's Grewe. Grewe. I can't say it.
Yeah,
I'm sure
it's a V
all
instead
of our
of a W.
European people are making fun
I know.
of me.
I know. Sorry, Swedes. Sorry, I know it's very painful, but we're trying here. We at least know it's not Grew.
It looks like it rhymes with you to me, but okay. So tell me about him. Why is he popular here?
Gregor says it's Grewe. Grewe?
Yeah, Greve.
I don't actually like him that much, but he's probably a second round talent. I think it's fair to say.
I like power forward. The skills there at certain points. He's very physical. If you like the type of power forward, it's just I think the knock on him is he focuses on it too much and then he gets in trouble. And then stops trying to score. But I think there'll be certain teams that really like that will value him.
Okay. And Dario's favorite here, Mr. Pistola Pete. or Patrick Pistola. I liked what I saw from him. I don't know if I have an opinion whether I'd want to take him here or not, but I wouldn't hate the pick.
Yeah, I feel the same. Or maybe Holmstrom or Hoglander make it.
I feel a
Would
lot
be fair picks too.
more comfortable picking out of Finland than I do Sweden because the Finnish game is a lot closer to what you expect out of North American. They play on that like it's not the small ice, but it's not the ginormous ice either.
Yeah, they play on a 90-foot sheet
Yeah.
or something close to that,
Yeah.
which is a lot better than 100 and closer to our B5.
They're doing something right over there right now.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's part of why I liked Nikkanen in the third round if he happened to fall there. But
Oh, there you go.
I have a feeling. Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to add a Finnish player of some sort of in the middle round.
Gregor says Greyway, last name translate roughly to Count. So if we draft him, we can just call him the Count.
Okay, that works.
1, 2, 3.
It'll help Bednar not make too many men on the ice penalties.
I also would like a Euro in the second. Kind of try a different angle in the second.
Yeah.
You know, the last thing I think they need is to draft like Matthew Robertson at 47, and then we can argue about why he isn't playing for 5 years.
Draft Matthew Robinson at 100, so.
Well, that's kind of also Korzak's life if he gets drafted at 47.
Which is fair, but I like Korzak a whole lot more than I like Robertson.
Or Kalyachanok, same thing. Yeah. I mean, he'd be a nice prospect to have, but we'd still be arguing about him in 5 years.
For sure.
Mad Sogard was also very popular here, and I agree. I think that if praying that we don't end up with Spencer Knight, that if that's the goalie we end up with, is Sogard at 47.
If you can do the same thing you did with Annanen and trade back to like 54 or something, and take Sogard there, that wouldn't be too shabby at all.
Well, here's my question: why do you need another high goalie pick? Like, Annanen was supposed to be the, we're finally going to get with it and invest a high pick in a goalie, and they didn't.
Because Annanen's on a 4-year plan, and Sogard wouldn't be.
Yeah,
they're not taking him. They'd have to sign him in 2 years.
The most successful goalies drafted in this decade were both out of the CHL, so.
I don't think it matters as far as when they have to sign him. I think it's where you last played, and it was the WHL, so it's 2 years.
Okay. I was just, if he was on loan, then I was wondering if that meant that he got a 4-year deal.
I think it means you could play in the AHL if you want to use the loophole, but I don't think it means you get 4 years to get signed.
How much do you believe in Adam Werner, I guess, is the question.
I mean, I think he played well enough that I'm tempted to be optimistic about him.
So 2 years down the line, let's say Annanen's not ready. The Abs have nothing behind Werner.
Right.
So that's where Sogard comes
in. Do they care? I mean,
you should.
Smackers could rise from the dead, and all kinds of things could happen. But no, I think you're right.
I mean, Annanen as a top prospect. Like, let's say they took Skarek instead, and people see him more as a top prospect. Would we even feel like we want to do that again and invest either like 47 or 63 or God forbid 16 in another goalie if we had Skarek?
I mean, I don't want to invest 16, but the other ones,
no.
Sure. The reason we didn't like the investment in Annanen as much is because we didn't have the second first-round pick. We had already moved a second-round pick for another goalie. We have the picks in place this year that it doesn't feel like you're taking a huge hit to take a goalie at 47.
Yeah, because you go from Cout, and then you're just like taking a huge nap for like 16 hours, and then you wake up and you take Annanen.
But at the end of the day, they basically used 3 pieces of draft capital last year to take a goalie. It's not like they get extras all the time. Like, this might be it for extra picks. Like, I wouldn't count on having more than.
I mean, I'd be fine with passing on Sogard and taking my boy Parik from the Czech Republic. Later in the third round.
Right.
But
I'm not
I
gonna
think they
be
could even take
upset
the
if they
year off.
don't take Sogard, but I think it's a reasonable place to pick a goalie.
Sure,
right.
I think his
I think it'd be
talent
really
level is
hard if
worth
he was
it.
still on the board and the Avs were picking at 47. I think it'd be really hard for them not to pull the trigger on that.
But he was like at 80 for Bob.
It's still goalies, right? Like, goalies are just going to go wherever they go. The
Yeah.
lists just don't seem to matter.
I still think they could even take the year off.
I wouldn't mind it, but I think sometimes you're just in a good spot in the draft to take a good goalie and you do it.
I don't think it'd be a 47.
We'll see if that happens.
But
I really don't think he'll make it to 47.
I think you will.
Definitely wouldn't trade up for him, put it that way.
No. All right. Any last thoughts on the second round or number 47?
What's our Kroger brand pick for 47? As Evan put
Beecher!
it.
NTDP, skate good, pick Beecher. That's the Kroger pick.
I don't know. You don't like my Kokkonen pick.
Yeah,
I didn't like him much.
That's my Kroger brand honka.
Well, I didn't want him just because his name's Miko, and that would be confusing. So
It would
that's a good reason. That's a good reason not to take him. So, all right, let's go with pick number 16. And this is probably the most interesting pick for the Avs. I know probably the most exciting pick is number 4, but I think this is the most interesting because it's very difficult to get the lay of the land on what's going to be available and even what they're really going to be thinking at the time, just because depending on what they do at 4, that could have some influence on what they do.
I don't think it does anymore. I used to think that what they did at 4 would impact it significantly, but I don't think it will. I think they're pretty set at taking a forward at 16 one way or another, unless they do the unthinkable and take Knight, but again, that would not be relevant to 4.
Right.
Yeah, I think you really have to still be in best player available mode, even if they truly believe in that or not. But I think if they take Byram at 4, I do think the urgency to take a forward at 16 is pretty critical.
Yeah, I don't think you can come out of this first round with 2 defense. That's not satisfactory.
But then again, the best player available is probably a forward anyway, so it's not like you're really going for need there. It's just, I would be surprised. Yeah, I think we all would be very surprised they did not take one forward in the first round.
Yeah.
I think it's getting traded one way or the other.
Yeah.
No, I don't think they want to trade that pick.
Why not?
No, I think they want to trade up.
Well, it'll be one way or the other. I agree with that. Like, basically what it comes down to is if the D run happens before them and a bunch of the forwards they want are available, they can move back. If the D run doesn't happen at all, they're gonna have to move up.
All right, but let's go through this scenario. Like, let's say that someone takes Caulfield somewhere, pretty early or middle of the top 10. And Edmonton takes a defenseman like they shouldn't do, and you just start seeing some of the guys that we're looking at as sort of the top 9 forwards that have been talked about all year, sliding closer and closer to 16. But we know they're not going to get all the way there. I mean, how tempting is it going to be to try and package either the second or the third or something to get up so you can probably catch the caboose there, which will probably be someone like Boldy or Cousins.
I think
Put goals in. I think it's going to be very tempting.
If we end up with Puck,
I think it would be too.
First of all, I would trade every other pick in the draft to get Puck Colson if that's what it took. Seriously.
Wow.
Ditka.
Would you trade Sam for him?
No. We already went there in 2A. No, I would not trade Sam. That's where I draw the line. But
Don't be
No, I mean,
ridiculous.
I don't like I think if you have a chance to trade up and get one of the guys, like if you're sure that like the 9 guys that we've really been talking about all year as being the top forwards in the draft, if any of them look like they're starting to fall a bit, and by fall I mean like even 2 or 3 spots, I think you really have to consider how good a draft you can get if you get whoever you get at 4, and then another one of these top 10 guys,
I
with
think most everyone
consolidated picks.
agrees with that thought, because you're basically if you take a forward at 4, you're probably not even getting that much worse of a forward
Yeah.
with this if you do that. But there's 2 issues with that. A, how aggressive the Avs would have to be. I mean, have they I'm not going to say never, because I can't think back to every draft on the spot here, but to move up to get a player, when was the last time they did that?
I mean, not
And
during this regime, obviously.
and 2, that's
They'd
the other.
they'd have to dial up Pierre Lacroix's number in Las Vegas and say, okay, how do we do this again?
But the other thing is, it's not like they'd be the only team thinking about this,
I'm
or
sure.
those teams in that range, maybe they want the player. So you'd really have to find a perfect match, which they should be doing. They should be asking, I think, starting at 11 through 15, what would it take? But you've heard that like Ottawa wants to move up. Maybe they're in the conversation too. I just think if you see a Cousins or a Boldy or a Krebs hanging out there at 13, it's going to be very competitive.
Well,
I mean, it's going to be
we can all
the thing
cheer
is,
when Ottawa moves up to take Cider, and then they
Yeah.
fall further. So
yeah, I'd love to see that. I'd love to see 2 teams behind us move up to take Cider and Knight, and we're just sitting there
Yeah,
with
the more
Boldy
crazy,
and
the
Krebs
better.
in front of us.
I
Yeah,
think Knight is definitely going before the Avs pick.
yeah, I think so too.
There's
now.
just too much. There's too much hype.
I agree.
I don't
flying
know if
around
I
it
buy
right
it. Hey, if that happens, that's great. Because
yeah.
A, then we won't pick him, and B,
Yep.
it means other good stuff's gonna be there. But I don't know. I go back and forth. Like I know it's in the rumors a lot, but taking a goalie in the first round just barely became acceptable. Now teams are tripping over themselves to trade up to get one in like the top 15, which hasn't happened since Jack Campbell. And it's like there's going to be another quote unquote generational goaltender in next year's draft. So
The great thing was like Philadelphia was rumored to be in on Knight, and it's like obviously they just had Carter Hart in his rookie year, and they're looking at this. It's like, what are you?
But hey, I know it's out there. I know more than one person's speculating that. If that happens, I'll get the popcorn out.
Even then, though, 16
But
just feels, even with a Knight going in front, you're just a little bit too far off the back.
Yeah, I agree
felt
with
that way because you don't want to hope for like a huge fall or something like that. It's tough to hope for, but I started doing a mock draft. It really doesn't take much, though. I don't even have Knight going high. I don't even have anything crazy like, let's say, Lavoie going top 10.
But you have the run on
to
D.
get there. I have Soderstrom, Cider, and Broberg going.
So what did you have at 16
I could see.
then?
I mean, one of those is a guarantee, but I think more than 2. That's. I mean, I know it could happen. It just doesn't seem that likely. And I think Soderstrom and maybe Cider will go.
I can see Broberg going, but
I think they view this as their window is opening, and that they look at 3 years down the line, they're going to have to pay a lot of guys more money, and that they can get aggressive to move up and get a Boldy or someone that can step in 2 or 3 years and take an ELC contract. So I think they're going to do it, and I hate this, but I think they might trade the pick just for a player outright. So, and I know that's probably going to. I think Jackie just jumped out the window.
Yeah. I could see that too.
After seeing how they traded Kaut, I'm not like the most married to the 16 pick, but It would have to take someone good. I don't know if like Kreider is enough for them to do it. I think it would if they could do it to get someone, say like Ehlers, then you would say that's definitely worthy.
That'd be all in. Yeah.
And obviously you'd have to add more than
right. You're talking about Barry in 16 basically here, right?
Sure.
And what does that get you?
And if you're talking about that caliber of player,
Neil
fine.
Pionk.
No points.
It's just.
I mean, I don't even like Cousins. Like, I think he's going to be a good player. Yeah. I think he's pretty limited offensively, but I think he's not someone I would move up for. But if Boldy or Podkolzin keeps falling, then I think they have to be aggressive.
Craps.
Well, he might fall.
Are you gonna? Yeah, are you
trade
up for the injured guy?
That's the most abs thing ever.
Well, here's one I wonder about Boldy. He's the one there's no rumors about who likes him. There's no hype. Nobody talks to him. He doesn't get to go sit around with all the top prospects.
Maybe he doesn't have the cool haircut that everybody got.
Is he the one that could legitimately fall? I mean, you don't think so. It seems like everyone seems to generally agree he's around 10 or 12, but is he the kind of guy that just falls because he's not going to be any team's favorite?
What about Boldy would make him be this year's faller? I mean, obviously with Krebs you could point to, all right, someone stepped on the back of his leg and plays on a crappy team.
I mean, what is it, Button or somebody was saying did he bomb in the tournaments? Boldy?
No,
he was fine. I think he was poor until the U18. I think he didn't have a lot of production, and then at the U18 he did well. I think it might be the inconsistency that teams don't like.
That and the fact that he's the winger. I think people just default to the fact that the centers are carrying the lines, and that's why we see Zegras rising so high, and Boldy is just kind of the afterthought.
So who did Boldy play with mostly during the season? If you
he played a lot. I mean, a lot with Turcotte, and sometimes
he was on
but he's
the second and third line.
Turcotte when he was the 1C or Turcotte when he was the 2C?
Both. Boldy's the guy on the wing that they're like, okay, just put him with whoever we need to.
Yeah. It's not like he was on the Hughes. Like that was Hughes and Caulfield, and I don't remember who's in the other side, but it wasn't like Boldy. They used him more on, I think, the second or third line. So maybe that's kind of my prediction because honestly, you hear a lot more about Newhook than you hear about.
Yeah, that would be interesting if a forward goes in front of one of these guys, because Newhook has definitely gotten a lot of hype lately.
Newhook's going 15 to Montreal, like almost for sure.
But their media pounds the table. They have to take defense, so that one's going to be interesting.
They can take the German.
I think he'll be gone by then. I forget. They're one of the teams that's obsessed with handedness. I think they're the ones that want a lefty, right. And Ottawa's the ones that want a righty.
Makes sense. The French want the guy that's gauche.
Well, the Habs. What is it that they don't have? Is it lefties?
It's tough to say because I don't know what their defense is exactly going to look like this year, because you never know what Shea Weber's going to be, and they just got rid of.
Yeah, they have a lot of righties, I think.
That's what I think. I think it was they wanted a lefty and Ottawa wants a righty.
Petrie, they have Juleson, Weber.
Like Juleson, you can't count on.
Nobody cares after that.
Well, Mete, there's Mete.
Mr. No Goals Mete.
He might score a goal once.
I think the Avs are going to get aggressive, and I think because I really do think their window's open now, and that they need to look at because Landy's got to sign a big deal. They got to find some cheap guys that can step in 2 years, because God knows they're not going to use second or third rounder who's been developing.
Well, pretend they don't jump up and Tomasino's there, and he was a very popular pick by our listeners. I didn't have much chance to delve into him. And from the little I saw, I really did like what I saw from him. Could he be a guy that some people are saying he could be a second line center in the NHL within a few years. I mean, do you see that out of him?
He does. He feels like an abs pick. He's one of the guys that you look at him and you don't see any big flaws, and you just see a solid hockey player all around.
Yeah.
The Avs have loved Brian Little for years, and he's got a little bit of that in him. So
Yeah.
I think he's definitely
that's a
the
good comparison.
realistic target at 16 if nobody falls or anything crazy happens, they don't move up. That's kind of like the default, I guess you could say, which is a little unfair because I do like him too. I'd be fine if they took him at 16.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I watched the shift by shift you made, Rudo, and it's like it seemed like every shift it was like 26 to 44, 26 to 44, 26 to 44. I mean, you could see him playing well with a good player kind of vibe.
The Avs had seller's remorse on pick 47 and had to watch Akil Thomas kill it all year. So they're trying to make up for it by take Tomasino.
And having no goalie would have been a problem too, but yeah.
I don't think he's going any higher than 16, but if he does, then that just makes more stuff fall.
Yeah, if they do stand pat for whatever reason, I mean, it just, maybe the forwards don't fall and the D run happens and it just plays right into their hands.
What about that DU?
No.
Bobby Brink.
We're just gonna go up there and say we're taking the DU kid.
Bobby Grimaldi.
Be there the first time. They don't really care that much about DU. They really haven't.
They really don't.
They like Logan O'Connor.
Well, that's after the fact, but they don't care about drafting DU commits. That just really doesn't seem to matter to them much, or even Colorado kids. I know Clerman, but really, I lost my thought. So anyway,
an Indiana kid now.
Brink shouldn't go in the top 20. I'll put that out there.
I don't think so either.
I think he'll go just after 20. But I think in the same vein, we need to have the Caulfield conversation because I think
he's a guy that I didn't put in those top 9 forwards we all like so much, but a lot of people are putting him in the top 10 of the draft. And I think that's
good. Not everyone can go top 10. That's the thing. There's a lot of guys that should go top 10, but they all can't.
Yeah, and that's I like that because I don't I don't think the Avs will pick him at 4 as some people were throwing out there today.
It was in USA Today. I saw it in print.
Well, that's a fine paper and everything, but I just don't see it happening. But he's a guy that could help guys that we probably like a lot better fall. So I mean, I think it's a good thing if he goes fairly high.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
But would you take him at 16? If he's at 16, would you take him?
Nope.
I can't. I know I'm not supposed to be height biased like that, but I don't like his game.
If he wants to go and be a DeBrincat for someone, great, but the Avs don't need to take that risk.
Yeah.
I would think about it at 16. Obviously, depending who else is there, but if no real big prize is there, and you're talking about between him and Tomasino, I don't know. It's a fair thought.
I would take Tomasino over him. I would take him over Cider, maybe. It would be tough. That'd be a real.
I'd take Suzuki before I took him.
Ooh, that's a.
I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't know. I might take Caulfield.
You're the Suzuki hater. We know.
I know.
No, I think he's a great sort of dog with a hand grenade in its mouth for sort of the letting the Avs get a little bit closer to picking up someone very excellent with the 16 pick.
Let someone else pull that pin.
Yeah, exactly. And just as an aside here, Spencer's night, his name did come up. In our poll, we asked, are they going to take a goalie at 16? And actually, a lot of people were fine with it, but they were, they weren't that, they had some misgivings about it. Only about 13% of the respondents were really gung ho on taking a goalie there, and that's kind of where I'm at. Over a third were like selecting a goalie in the first round was like lighting a pick on fire, and that's kind of the way
I would do it, but I don't think it's even going to be an option. I think he's going. I think that with Philly, it's that 10, 11, 12 area because the Wild are rumored to be after him. He's going somewhere in there, or someone's going to trade up to get him. That's my thought.
I think Florida would be a little interested too. I mean, there are definitely a lot of teams in front of us that would seem to be inclined to make that choice. So
Yeah.
I don't think that the choice is going to be put into the Avs' hands whether to take him or not.
I've said enough of my goalie hating, so I'll just leave it at this. I'm not going to say it will never ever make sense in the first round, but it does not make sense this year.
Yeah.
I think you got to be pretty cracked out to want to move up to draft a goalie that high. That's just too expensive, but
yeah. That's probably my worst case scenario for the first round is if they take the second and the first and the second and then the number 16 pick and package them to move up to take Knight.
I would take him at 16, but there's no way I would move up to take.
Yeah.
If they did that, they're just basically giving up having prospects, which maybe they have, but that's like officially
they're giving up their sanity in general. I mean, that's just not something that people who know what they're doing would do. All right, well now we get to the real meat and potatoes. Let's roll up
4
to number 4. And I'll start this off with asking everyone how they felt about sliding 3 spots back in the lottery for the second time in 3 years or 2 years.
The more I watch the guys that are going to be available for them, angrier I got that they felt bad. Because to me, all of the forwards I have an issue with at some point of the year or another. So
yeah,
it just makes me angry that we have to wait. At minimum, I think you have to wait 2 years, but you're still. I didn't care in 2017, but I actually care this year that they drop back.
Well, this year, if we had a Kako or a Hughes, you drop it into the Avs lineup and add a free agent, you're contending for cups.
Yeah.
And now we don't have that because we're drafting a player that's at minimum 1 year out and more realistically probably 2.
Yeah.
And the Avs,
it's just it's the way it happened too. I mean, it's just Jersey twice getting the top pick while we get 4th. I mean, that sucks.
It's stupid that 2 and 3 get a lottery. I can accept 1 gets a lottery, but 2 and 3, what does that do?
Yeah, I mean, giving anything to the Rangers should be against the law. I mean, that goes without saying.
It hurts beyond that because 2 weeks before the season was over, we're sitting there playing a game against Chicago, and it's like neither of these teams are out of the playoffs. And then
here they are.
Chicago just drops into the 3rd spot, and they didn't pull off an amazing trade and fool Eugene Melnick their way into it. They were just gifted it.
Yeah, that's the part that makes no sense. Is that there was not a ton of separation between those two teams, and now there is.
They can take Turcotte though. I'm not a huge fan. To be honest,
I like Turcotte, but I prefer Doc more.
He's very blah when I watch him. I'm just like, all right. I mean, I guess. But I rewatched the shift by shifts recently with an eye towards Turcotte versus Zegras, and what I came up with was that Turcotte is a lot more polished and mature in his game,
Yep.
and I think that makes him seem probably a little bit better than he really is as far as upside. And that's probably great for someone like Chicago that probably wants to use him a lot quicker than the Avs do. Um, I saw some flashes that Zegras might have more upside. I could, I think I could make a case for it. I wouldn't bet my house on it, but if that's what ends up happening, I would definitely start thinking that in my optimistic mind that Zegras has more upside and that Turcotte just looked better because he basically matured a little bit earlier, and his 17-year-old year, he was doing things where Zegras wasn't. He was getting a little more advanced a year early, and that's kind of why we're seeing the differentiation here.
I mean, I'm fine with Chicago taking Turcotte. It's won't make me sad if he's off the board, but if we're taking a forward at 4 and say he's available at 4, I'm okay with him being the pick. I think you could make an argument that he's best player available. I think the upside's decent. Just for me, if we're taking a forward beyond him, if we're having like the Zegras conversation, it kind of goes back to your original question. Like we had first, and I wasn't absolutely in love with Hughes, so I could live with not winning first. Then we got fourth, which is okay because we did okay with Makar, but now it seems like we're not going to get a Makar. So now we're basically discussing forwards that are more like eighth. So after all this, after rooting for Ottawa to lose, and they did it, and they were the worst team, and we're basically going to get a forward that's more suited outside the top 5. That's pretty depressing.
And I just want to say I wasn't comparing Zegras to Doc at all. I can't make that comparison well enough with what little I've watched of both of them. I was just comparing Zegras versus Turcotte.
That's what Turcotte is. The reason Turcotte is so high in the rankings is because he is arguably the safest draft pick you can take outside of the top 2.
Yeah.
He's a surefire NHLer. His ceiling, people vary on how high it is, but it's certainly not as high for me as someone like a Zegras or a Doc, but his floor is quality. His floor is better than what Jost has been.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, he's like a lot of people have said he's a better Jost, and I can totally see that. He's definitely got some try hard in him. I can see why the Avs would probably like him. It's just I didn't like his game that much. I'd be more comfortable with Zegras, honestly, just because I like the no look backhand passes that only connect once every 3 or 4 times and stuff.
I like Turcotte better in a game. I do think the shift by shifts don't quite give him the best highlight. There was one time at the U18 he's like behind the net and he hit this guy and knocked him over and took the puck, and I was like, oh yeah, the Avs are writing that one down. I just knew it. You're just like, they're gonna pull up that clip in the meeting.
The reverse hit.
To me, I don't acknowledge Cousins as being in the mix just because I refuse to admit that he's going to be in there. But of the 3 centers, I don't really love any of them. But if they were on the table, I'd take Doc and just say, because at least he's way different than what they have.
Right. He's the most unique to the Avs.
Yeah. So I mean,
and that's been my like for him all year, is that he is different. I just haven't had enough time to watch him. So, let's say that Turcotte and Zegras are sort of, I mean, they're not the same kind of player, but they play in the same team. They say they play in the same system. What are the main differences besides the size and the hands and the vision that Doc has that's going to differentiate him between those two U.S. players?
With Turcotte, it's the offensive ceiling. Doc, even with his size, has incredible hands and the ability to just straight up roast kids. With Zegras, you get into a bit more of an interesting conversation there, and it's going to sound weird, but consistency. Doc, yes, did disappear for a while during the season, but within a game, he doesn't do all of the silly stuff that Zegras does. He knows how to handle the puck. When you need to make a simple pass, he makes a simple pass. You don't have to be the superhero every time you touch the puck.
And for
And
me,
sort of
just the Zegras stuff, I totally understand why it does appeal to some, but to me, it just doesn't impress me at all. Like, to me, that stuff just isn't even like, wow, cool. It makes rounds on Twitter. It just doesn't do anything for me. Like, I like to see highlights more of, say, like what Doc does, or use some power and get it dangle and be flashy that way, rather than just like the Globetrotters stuff. So for me, I even have Cousins ahead of Zegras. Like, if we're talking about the centers, my order's probably Turcotte, Doc, Cousins, Zegras.
I don't even think Zegras is going to be a center full time.
I don't think so either.
I mean, that's the thing with Doc. I think he's a center, and
You would hope
a
so.
center through and through. And I just think down the line that would be something. You got McKinnon, who's a completely different. Well, he's got power, but he's all speed, and then you throw out Doc on the next line. It's like teams have to kind of defend two extremely different players.
McKinnon's all shot generation. Doc can be more of a playmaking from the middle type player.
Yeah,
and it's just you destroy teams by mixing that up on them.
Well, all right. The knock on Doc, or the knocks on Doc, are sort of a little bit of engagement issues, and how is his 200-foot game going to translate to the NHL? Which I didn't, in the limited viewings I saw, I didn't really see any problems with, any of his game that's zone specific.
I think defensively he's fine from what I saw.
He's fine. He likes to fly the zone early. But...
Yeah, that was something I noticed too.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that is a huge concern. For me, I think the skating's a bit of a concern with Doc, and you expect that from a bigger player, but the agility is going to have to get better. I think especially when he gets moving, he's a pretty good skater, and he can carry the puck and make plays at high speed. So that part's good. He's just going to have to get better at kind of and that might be some of his problem with the board battling and the engagement, as I think sometimes the skating lets him down more agility wise when he has to battle someone in close. And
but he's not like a Jost,
Right. Like, he does need to use his body more, admittedly, especially in board battles and things like that. And it's gotten better. I think especially in the playoffs he showed that he's capable of using his physicality.
Could he? I think he could probably use his body more like Mikko does.
Right.
Where he's not just straight up blowing
that
people
big ass out there.
Right, but he can protect the puck big time.
I don't expect everyone to be 10 out of 10 on the try hard and the intensity. Yeah, if he's up at Mikko level intensity and using his body, that should be adequate.
Well, I mean, even if he's like a Ryan Johansson, where he doesn't quite live up to the expectations, but he's still pretty good.
If you get a 60-point player out of him, that's a home run for the Avs.
Right, and I know Jackie hates this, but it's like, he's really only needs to be a second line center. That's basically what you're trying to get out of this pick.
Yeah, and I find that depressing.
Well, it's reality. It's like you're never going to draft someone better than McKinnon, so it is what it is.
To me, it just comes down to I'd swing for the fences with him rather than Turcotte just being, good or whatever you expect from him.
So for you, Evan, what do you see in Doc versus Zegras? How do you separate those two?
I don't like Zegras when I watch him at all. To me, I just see a guy where it's just like, how much is this actually going to translate? And I imagine Bednar watching his videos and just throwing something at a wall.
Yeah, well, he's very reckless, It's just, I could see any NHL coach watching Zegras' game and being like, oh, man.
And I don't think it's because he's selfish or he's doing it to, like, show off. I think he's just, like, having fun, and I think maybe a little bit is just immaturity. Not in, like, a negative, just in this kid's 17 on a great team, and they...
Yeah, and I wonder how
hanging
much
10 on everybody, so why not?
Right. And that when I was watching him, I tried to think about sort of what he would look like with Albie O'Connell in DU system.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
Right, because I mean, that's actually a fairly close system to what the Eagles run, and to an extent what the Avs run in the NHL. So I wouldn't be super worried about what he ends up looking like after 2 years at BU, because I think he's going to calm down a lot, and he'll learn how to
Yeah,
be
like
in
I think he
control
wants
more.
to mature and be an NHL player and work towards it. But
Right.
it's like
I mean,
if a guy's selling point is creativity, there isn't a ton of creativity in how the Avs play. So even if
No.
that's your best attribute, how is that really going to bring a ton of value to the Avs?
Well, you
Well, I
have
mean,
to trust him going to Boston too, where it's just
Yeah.
a tire fire right now. Like, is he going to get thrown to the wolves and just, well, see what happens as a freshman? Like, do you trust them with his development?
Yeah, that's another concern.
It is, and I think the saving grace there is sort of as dark as their program looks over the past few years. At least they play teams that are running pro style offenses. They run a pro style offense themselves. It's not like going to Notre Dame or the Michigan schools or the Minnesota schools where you're really you're really playing an NCAA system that doesn't have a lot to do with pros.
They'll probably get better eventually, but you're basically saying like 1, maybe 2 years for him, and that's where he's going to be in that environment.
Do you see it as maybe like a Makar situation where they have a garbage incoming class, so you can drop him in and have him be the man?
I think you
I would think
could, but
so.
I think it also depends how you feel about the coach. Is it just because they're going to be a really young team, or is it because O'Connell's not a good coach? And I don't know if he can overcome that.
I mean, it could go. I mean, obviously, it can go two ways. One is he grows up a little bit and matures his game, realizing that he's going to be the guy. Or two, he thinks he has to do everything, and he just kind of keeps playing a game that I'm not sure is going to translate all that well.
I agree.
Well,
I worry about that, the latter guy there.
Well, the thing that is sort of I don't know. It makes me feel a little bit better about it is Joel Farabee's progress this year. Because I mean, I don't think they were all that similar, but I mean, Farabee was definitely sort of a lone wolfish type guy when he got there, and that's kind of the way he played for the first half of the season. But he seemed to really buy into the system a lot more after World Juniors, and he really took off. And I mean, I don't think Albie O'Connell had a lot to do with it. I just think he just started getting how to play at that level and fitting into that system a lot better, and it worked out for him.
The thing with
So-
Farabee is he was one of those guys more like Turcotte, where he had that really high work ethic. He was a coach's kid, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a little bit of try hard.
And Zegras doesn't
helps there.
have that at the same level.
But
Yeah.
I don't think it's dire. I don't think it's like Makar going to UMass before they turn it around. Like, it's still BU. It's still a prestigious program, but
Yeah, I mean,
So
not
I
everybody
would-
left.
I knew Makar was going to be fine as soon as it was Greg Carvel there, just because I followed Ottawa a lot growing up, and I knew that he could develop a defenseman. I mean, I knew ultimately he'd be fine with that. I mean, with Zegras' game, I just worry he's going to try to just do everything. I don't know. I mean, either way, none of these guys are my top 3 favorite picks, even though I know my guys are not probably going to be picked.
Yeah, do we need to talk about the elephant in the room?
is there? I think there's more than one.
Oh yeah, we forgot one.
One
We
of them
forgot
plays
someone.
defense. So
Well, I was going to say, I think Jackie invited me on for some pod backup.
Actually, it's not true because I know that we don't need to convince.
He's not going for. It's not happening.
Yeah.
It's not. I know
let
it's
me
not,
let
but I
me pull
would.
down my hope. But
That's why, like, especially if they take Doc at 4, that's why I want them to be aggressive at 16. Because if Boldy or Podkolzin fall, I think they're perfect for him.
Oh yeah.
that would be fantastic. That would pretty much be a dream draft. I still like Podkolzin. If we have to take a forward, he's my pick.
Yeah,
But I understand what people don't like about him, but I think all these other forwards are kind of more or less on the same level, and you can argue that you like certain things better than others. And
that's how I feel. I see Landy in him a little, which I don't know. I just see that, just where he's more. I think a lot of people don't think he's all that talented. I think he is talented, and that he's gonna produce a lot of points just through force of sheer will. He's just gonna outwork guys.
yeah, I think he's. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, obviously the place where we've seen Podkolzin the most, at least for me and probably you, Evan, is at World Juniors, and a lot of people would look at that like, oh, he was a little bit disappointing, and it's like he's 17 playing with a bunch of 19-year-olds basically.
Being
Basically,
put in like a defensive role too.
right, playing a third line role and killing penalties and whatnot, and it's like it's really hard to put into words how tough that is to be put into that role when you're the youngest guy on the team and be able to, basically carry it pretty well.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I understand that. I mean, there's a very good chance he's not going to be the pick. To see him falling down as much as he has just doesn't make a ton of sense to me, because I'm like Jackie. I think there's a lot of flaws in all these forwards.
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either. I mean, it was almost like people were waiting for a reason to knock him down, and maybe consensus third overall was a bit much. But I mean, he was at that point in April, so I could go on, and
For the record,
that, but
I mocked him at 6 the other day, so I don't think he's not talented or anything like that. But
I do think I think he does have the skill talent. I think he has the shot in the hands to be in the conversation with these other players. I don't think you're taking him just for the work ethic and the relentlessness. And I think he has a longer runway because he's so young and was so inexperienced coming into this year. So I think there's a greater area for upside with him. That's why I would take him.
And when people are like, well, you're not going to see him for 2 years, it's like, who cares? You're probably not going to see any of these guys for 2 years.
Exactly.
The timeline
that would be
is
my
not
one
a
concern.
problem at all for me.
Yeah. Well, like Zegras, my concern is that you have to trust Russia developing him. So,
I mean, I think you have to say that with anyone. I mean, the WHL has its flaws as well. It's like any college you can pick apart. I mean, you can really pick apart any place where a player's going to end up. So,
I mean, either way,
you're kind of picking your poison there.
He's playing professional. Like, at the very least, he'll be in the VHL, which does suck, but it is a professional men's league. All the others are not going to be playing professional.
Russia does have a history of
it's the variably
skirting
high
on the young kids sometimes.
But okay, let's say 4th overall. Are they going to be like, yeah, let's not play him? Russia loves pedigree. They love the show of things. And I think they would play him and actually play him in the KHL. Or maybe not like 20 minutes a night, but I think he could at least play as much as, say, like Kovalenko and get actual minutes and do something in the KHL.
No, I think you're right about that.
We all know the elephant in the room.
Yes.
Nate was referring.
Well, let's look at who our listeners felt was going to be the Avs' choice. 14% picked Alex Turcotte, and I think I left it up there like you can pick who you think the Avs will take or who they should take. So it can be reality or fantasy. I think most people kind of figured Turcotte would be going third, and that's why he wasn't getting a ton of votes. Next up was Zegras with a little over 16%. After that was Kirby Doc at just under 30%. But the number one pick with 39% of the vote was Bowen Byram, defenseman, OHL. And I echo that. That's who I picked. I know we've heard many times that the Avs are flat out not taking a defenseman, but I don't know how you can really be that averse to taking Bowen Byram, when sort of everything is shaking out the way it is right now.
I just think it's common sense at this point. I mean, we debated the forwards. There's things alike in all of them, but when there isn't an obvious choice, if you're going to even pretend publicly that you care about best player available at this point, if you have any sort of concern for that, I think you have to take Byram.
Yeah, and one thing that a lot of people have said that you're looking at the 26 goals he had during the season and saying, well, that's probably not going to translate to the NHL. He's not going to be playing that many minutes and getting that much power play time for the most part, and that's fine. But
you can say
Jackie,
that about the forwards,
right? And Jackie, you've talked about this a lot, that you look at goals by defensemen, not so much as whether that's going to translate, one for one to the NHL, but that shows that they have the puck skill to execute the rest of their duties. And I think that's a good way to think, especially with Byram.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the appeal isn't that you think he's going to score 20 goals in the NHL.
Right.
Like say he's
Be nice.
Heiskanen. Like let's say he's Heiskanen. He's who scored 30 some points this year. Any Avs fan would take that running down the street if they could get that at 4 this year.
Right.
Just the way that people view Heiskanen and value him, even though we have Makar and think that he's like an amazing prize that Dallas got. But then, boy, we should pass on Byram so we can hopefully take the best forward out of one of 8
I know.
and hope that he's going to have the upside, even though he's not going to be on the top line. He's not going to be on the top power play. He's probably at least 3 years away from being your second line center. And you're not going to take a franchise defenseman just so you can go down that path.
I see him as the most regrettable non-pick you can make.
You want to hear about it for the next decade?
Yeah, 20 years at least. I mean, it's just like, I could definitely see in 2040 being like, man, just imagine if we had taken Byram back in 2019.
I could see Doc being that way too.
Yeah,
that would be the only argument I could make there.
Yep.
But yeah.
It's
I don't think you can say that about too many of the other guys, but yeah, Doc and Byram are two guys you could say, like, if you passed on them and they reached their potential, you would very snapper.
What really sells me on Byram, it's not his points production, as incredible as it was, but it's his ability to break the puck out on his own stick. The Avs have, for eternity, struggled with this. They finally have found some improvements to their breakouts with Makar and Gerard being able to actually pass the puck up the ice and bury, which is a different conversation because he might not be here like tomorrow.
He gone.
But the one guy they had that can consistently do things going coast to coast a little bit was EJ. And he can't really do that anymore, can he?
All of his rushes and did the same. go really wide, throw it at the net, puck goes the other way, and then he's got to change.
Or it goes in for some, like, totally fools the goalie.
If he's playing against Winnipeg, it goes in. For some
reason. It's just like the worst shot ever, and it goes in.
It's just a team that has had such a poor defense for like 10 years could just solidify and have the best young defensive core in the league. I think you could make that argument if you take Byram. Just do it. You don't even have to do anything. You could send him back to the WHL for 1 year, play him in another year. You don't even have to do anything.
He seems like a cocky
Well,
son of a bitch too, which is good.
yeah. And the thing is, like, everyone looks like, oh, the Avs defense is so good now that, maybe we don't need that. And it's just, look, all you can really count on is Gerard and Makar because they're not going anywhere. But it's like EJ, he's gonna, hopefully his shoulder really was dragging him down all last year, and he can return to some semblance of what he was beforehand. But it's like Barry's probably gone. Zadorov's future is a little iffy. Sorry, Evan. Cole's going to be gone in 2 years, hopefully.
I'm
and-
leaving. No.
You leave it with Z. He's
No,
still
I
here
mean that's
right
the
now.
thing is Byram's expansion draft protection too,
Yeah.
because you're gonna probably lose a defenseman on this.
But I mean, it's like you've really only got 2 guys you can count on. If you have Byram, you have 3, and that's half a defensive core, and that's great.
And that's half
know?
a
It's
defensive
like
core for the next decade. You're just
right,
done.
and it's like you put 3. You could put 3 Ian Coles with those guys and be fine. So it's like you don't need to worry about the defense because anything you would need to complement those guys would be pretty easy to either develop yourself. Don't laugh, Jackie, or just pick up otherwise.
If he's gonna be a 30 to 40 guy, like people are saying, oh well, that's not great. Well, it's like okay, I mean that's
EJ was
'cause he's not
30
gonna
to
be on the
40
first
sounds
power.
awesome to me. I don't
EJ
know.
was our best defenseman as a 30 to 40 guy for like 5 years.
Well,
Yeah.
and I mean that's gonna be a lot of even strength points too, because he's not gonna be on the top power play.
Exactly.
And I mean, and the other thing is that probably gonna be pretty cheap if you lock him up long term. You might like same with Gerard. I think he's gonna sign pretty cheap. Like you could have a top 3 locked up for 20 million, maybe less. Probably less.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
and
like we're making the need argument, but I believe his talent is the best player available.
Yeah, I mean, you could go either way. I mean, either need or BPA, or whether you're like me and like to combine them. I think there's great arguments to be made, however you feel.
I think the Avs are a little bit more flexible here too, right? You probably say, okay, well, Makar's your number 1, but if you want to have Gerard on your second pair and Byram on your top, you absolutely can. Whereas with these centers, we're all saying it doesn't matter how good they are because McKinnon exists.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, all this Barry stuff is kind of shot up out of nowhere. I mean, is there a chance that they're changing their mind at the last second? Who the heck knows?
Pull the old switcheroo.
Yeah, that's one thing I wondered. I mean, a lot of people are saying like, well, does this mean that Byram is in play if they're really thinking about trading Barry tomorrow? I mean, I don't think that should really play into it, obviously, because we all know that, again, it's going to take 2 or 3 years for him to really get to the point where he's, a major contributor on the defense. But, like we've been saying, you have these 3 guys and you're pretty much set. And whether Barry stays or doesn't, it makes that kind of irrelevant.
I think he's the one guy at 4 that could step in after next season.
Yeah.
Because if he's playing 30 minutes a night already, like what good is another year going back there going to do?
I mean, Byram's a guy that teams in worse spots than the Avs would consider bringing in this year, even. Like,
yeah, if he gets drafted by the Kings, I think he's playing.
Yeah. I mean, it's, for me, I'd want to see him in some preseason games just to see what he looks like playing with real live NHL players. But I mean, I don't have a lot of doubts that he'd look really good.
I'd be okay with him going back the 1 year, but after that, for sure, he's got to play at 19.
And even if he doesn't, it wouldn't kill me,
Right. He'll be just fine either way.
As far as the Barry stuff, I think we always said that the draft was going to be the time where if they were going to move him, that would be the time. So I don't know if I take it so much as like, okay, they've decided Byram. But then again, it has come up pretty aggressively, so who knows?
Do we all agree that if Barry is here on opening nights that he's not getting traded?
For sure.
I would say 90%, just because I think there's a couple windows. I think like this weekend, I think right after July 1st, there's a little bit of a window, and I think there's the sort of early November window when you see a lot of trades. But I think once that early November window closes, he would not get traded after that.
Well,
Unless-
you're saying
unless
if he
the
doesn't
Avs
have
collapse.
if he doesn't have an extension, if he's here,
Yeah.
that's what you're saying.
Regardless, if
Yeah,
he's here on
yeah.
October 1 and it's not signed yet,
If he's here on opening night and they don't have an extension, I think they're idiots.
I disagree with you, but
When Sakic said that, I was like, that's insane. Don't go into the season without a contract.
I'm
think
starting to
Joe's
lean
fine with
toward
it.
Stastny 2.0 is what's going to happen, but
Yeah. I think them seeing, they're like, well, this just, this opens up $5.5 million of cap space and a roster spot, and that's what we gained from letting him go for nothing.
Great.
And a year to go for it. Like a year to go for it's worth
Yeah.
it for them.
I mean, and I don't hate that as much as most people do, just because I do see the logic in opening up cap space and a roster spot, but it definitely would feel like you missed out on something.
Well, they just let so many assets go. Like you're letting Varley go, you're probably gonna let Soderberg go. You're gonna. It's just if you're not trading Barry, where's the next group of assets coming from? Like, where's your next extra draft picks? Where's your next extra stuff?
But what about that sixth for Brassard?
It's like you're gonna have to trade Landeskog to get assets in 2 years.
No, they can't trade Lane.
Well, you can't, but it's like, what do you foresee? They're
It's the
gonna
same
want to
thing.
buy at the deadline. You're gonna want.
He would go into
stuff.
the season without an extension and not get traded. No, they would never do that.
Unless they're having
Alright,
a 70-point season or something.
Who's the team that the Avs love to get players from? Columbus.
The Columbus Blue Jacket.
And what did
Do
they
they?
do?
That's more like the bums. They like
Sure,
the bums.
but
from Columbus.
but look at what Columbus did. They have what, 2 picks this year in the draft?
Yeah.
So this is the Avs' plan, is to just murk their draft and go all in.
I think if they're gonna move picks, it's next year's draft. I think they're not even planning on showing up in Montreal.
No, right,
Like,
that's what I meant.
just
I
use
meant
all of them.
for 2020, yeah.
That's the one draft you want to show up to.
I know.
Is Laffy gonna go
I
number
don't
one?
know. I
in
see them as
Montreal?
so conservative. I mean, I don't think they'll be foolhardy with trading away picks. I think they like having their firsts. I don't,
I agree with you at first, but I think when they start to feel the pressure of the window starting to close, they're gonna panic. And this might be more like 2022 or something, but
what are they going to use at next year's deadline? Like at least the second, right? And probably the first if they can get a decent player.
I don't think so.
I think McKinnon brings some internal pressure too, just because he's. I mean, you listen to him talk. He's like, I'm done. Like, I'm done rebuilding. We got to win. And I mean, they got him on a sweetheart deal for what, 4 more years? You gotta.
But if they're having success, I mean, I know, it sounds like Mac really wants, someone like Panarin.
Sure, well, he can get on the phone.
But I mean, if they're having the success, if they're being competitive, I mean, I'm sure he noticed how competitive they were even without, anyone really. I'm not really going to count Brassard because he was more of a negative. It's like what they have right now is quite good. They don't really need to add a lot to it, and there's some internal modifications they can make to be even more competitive. So, I mean, you'd have to get them on board with it, but the tough thing I see is everyone's obsession with having a second line center that's not Carl Soderberg for some reason, even though Carl very productive.
But
he's
not
a
gonna
free
last,
agent.
Yeah.
I'm just saying for this year.
I'm not obsessed with the second line center thing. I think they do need to add somebody.
I agree though. I think a winger is just fine.
Yeah.
I mean, you can add someone like Donskoy and do a ton to this team, and Donskoy is just not. I mean, he's really not that much of an impact player.
Right. I mean, you could
but
do
he's
that.
He's what they thought they were getting with Calvert, I think.
Well, then they're idiots.
No, but I'm just saying they thought they wanted that kind of player, and it's just like, all right, you do that with Donskoy, and he can actually score and put up at least Kerfoot level
Why
points.
sell yourself short though? You can
As far
get
as
better
what?
than that. They have room to
Yeah.
get better than that.
Well, I don't see a lot of options other than trading for someone, and I'm not real keen on trading away assets to get things right now. I mean, if they can get someone that helps a lot in free agency, I'm cool with it as long as it's not really awful as far as term or dollars. But
Well, you're going to be
if
disappointed.
no, I know, but I mean, I think they avoided something horrendous with the contract that Hayes signed.
Yeah.
Sure, but I don't think they would have ever done it either. So
Right.
like,
But maybe they would have. But I don't think they need to be so obsessed about a second line center that they have to go and trade things that you really end up being marginal gain. Like if you trade Jost in a first for a guy that's going to be slightly more productive, I just I kind of hate that trade off.
I'm with you there. I agree with that. If you're not getting it through free agency, the piece you're moving is Barry because he's leaving anyway.
Right.
You don't want to give up things for improvements. Like that's how you get into trading Kyle Turris and a bunch of other shit for Matt Duchene, and then you feel bad.
Exactly. And it just it does seem like with the analytics department that they have, that they've been able to model these things pretty well and sort of calm down as far as giving up a lot for a little. So I mean that's one thing I sort of cling to as far as hope.
I would have loved to hear what that conversation was like to get Broussard from the analytics folks. My theory is I think the analytics people suggested Dano, but they did not suggest Broussard. There's no way. There's no way.
To be fair, I don't see how anyone with eyes could have suggested Broussard. So
the thing with Broussard, though, he was monumentally worse than he was with either of the teams he had been with previously last year.
They should see that coming.
Well, it's just, I think some of that is chemistry and fit that they, maybe that sort of exposed something they needed to see, especially with the Avs coaching staff.
Just look at Broussard's play style. That's a terrible guy to pick up at the deadline. He's an intelligent player who needs to find the soft spots in the ice to be successful, and you drop him into a system that he has no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's a system that thrives off of things like the rush, which he cannot be a part of.
Yeah.
Or forecheck.
And he's not a shoot and crash the net guy either.
Right. Nothing about the Avs system screams Derek Broussard.
Yeah. And one thing I wonder was whether they were trying to, maybe try to pick up a player that was a little less that, or whether they actually thought he'd fit in. I mean, that's sort of a good question that nobody will ever answer. But it'd be interesting to see what the reaction to that would be, because we all want them to be a lot more creative. We all want to be able to see someone like anyone that's seen Kamenev work in the AHL knows how he can sort of find the seam, find some very subtle passes in the offensive zone. To be able to take advantage of a guy like that and probably maximize what Kerfoot's able to do. I mean, it's like, if you got a little bit more sophisticated in your offense, you could really generate a lot more with what you have on hand.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
So are we going to predict who they're going to take?
Sure, let's do it. 4-16 and 47.
I can't say anyone but Byram. I think they will wake up tomorrow morning and see the light if they haven't already.
Ever the optimists.
Drafting with his heart. I think it. I'm gonna say Doc. That'll be my guess.
Yeah, I'm Doc as well. It looks like it's the path they were on all along, unless Turcotte falls, but he won't.
I feel like Doc was their favorite, but I think they can't deny best player available. They're going to take Byram. I think it pains them, and I think the rumors that they like Doc and all those things are true, but I think there's just too much momentum to pass on him. So I'm going Byram.
I love that, because if the coin flip is Byram or Doc, I walk away from that pick extremely happy.
Yeah, you can't lose.
Sure, I don't hate Doc. If it's Doc, he's of the forwards we discussed, he's on the higher end of my list. So
Joe Sakic is the tiebreaker. I guess we'll.
Does he care about defense? I guess we'll find out.
One question we had from the Peanut Gallery was, Doc had an injury at some point in the season. Does anyone know what that was, and then sort of how that was affecting him? I remember hearing something he was playing with something during the playoffs that was bothering him.
Oh,
he was actually hurt in the playoffs for the end of it.
Yeah.
You're talking about the playoff
that
injury? Yeah, it was in the 5th game of the 2nd round. So it was the game before they got knocked out, and Leeson kind of tripped him, and he fell awkwardly. It was either his knee or his ankle. I think he played the next game, but it was probably a good thing they got eliminated.
Yeah,
because it wasn't looking too good after that. So
he participated in everything at the combine. So
yeah. So if the question is that something we should be concerned about, I would say no. I don't think it was something that's going to hold him back.
Yeah, not at all.
It's not a Krebs situation, right?
Right, like he was on the ice today with the kids or whatever, so...
I wouldn't even be worried about Krebs' situation, if we're being honest, but...
I mean, I think anything with an Achilles injury, just, I don't know.
It's not
I
good.
would say
maybe it's not rational, but it's a fear that you have.
I'd way rather have it be that than a back, put it that way.
Yeah, or definitely a hip flexor.
Or a concussion.
I would say it's not nothing, but it wouldn't prevent me from taking him at 16. So
yeah,
it wouldn't prevent
16. Yeah,
taking him at 16.
Speaking of that, if the Avs draft Byram and Krebs, will Rudo get a new chair?
All right. If we get Byram and Krebs, I'll buy a new chair.
Do you have a tip jar?
I mean, I do have a PayPal and Patreon, but
start a chair tip jar.
If the Avs
an upholstery fund.
If the Avs draft Podkolzin in any position, I will not complain about development this entire summer.
All right. If the Avs draft Podkolzin and a player out of the queue in the first, you have to buy me a new chair.
Okay.
And there are a couple trades here that are interesting. Listener LJB4 wants to know: would you trade 4 and 47 to Detroit for 6 and 35?
Sure.
I would. Yeah, but that's because I don't like anybody. I'm not in love with anyone at 4. I guess.
Right. You're still getting a same caliber forward at 6 as you are at 4 to move up to basically the end of the first.
Yeah, they decided not to take Byram. Then you're basically getting the same forward. So
right. Yeah, and I think 35 is. I mean, that seems to be where you catch some really good fallers, like Timmy. And
to be honest, you can probably get 6 and 37 without even giving up 47 for 4. But
yeah, but yeah, that kind of thing, that's interesting sort of type of swap to think about. Let's see. Kramer 19 wants to know about Zack Jones in the second.
I
don't know a ton about Zack Jones.
Yeah.
I know that that he's one of the ones that some people have as favorites. But yeah, honestly, I don't know a ton about him, so I can't say much.
Based on his statistics in play, I wouldn't want anything to do with that in the second round.
Sounds made up with a name like that. That's just a generic name.
He's probably a guitarist. You know, it sounds like Zach Wild a little bit.
What do you
Cletus wants to know if Caulfield can dunk. I would
Definitely
say
not.
Oh my
unless
goodness.
he's a distant cousin
He's
of
got
Muggsy
magic.
Bogues, probably not.
Somehow he does.
He'd have to have
Somehow.
a 3.5 foot vertical to dunk, and then it'd have to be higher because there's no way he can palm a
Spud Webb
basketball.
could dunk. Maybe he could too.
Unless maybe you're talking about Judd Caulfield. Maybe he could dunk. He's 6'3".
If they drafted Caulfield to be another guy that I could stand next to in the locker room and just think, I could probably kick this guy's ass.
Let's see. Oh, where is this? That petrol relation wants to know, besides Barry, who is most likely to be traded on draft day or Saturday, let's say?
Like from the Avs or just in general?
Yeah, do you think there's anyone else besides Barry that the Avs are thinking about maybe doing a deal on the floor with?
I could see Z getting
Yeah.
traded.
Yeah,
Z's the low hanging fruit there.
I would say so.
Or Jost, if they...
I don't think so.
Nieto for
Yeah.
Puyarvi.
I think Nieto's
No!
not for pool party, but I think Nieto.
Nieto actually has better numbers than Pool Party.
Who's making that decision though? Because I could definitely see the front office wanting to move Nieto and Bednar being like, "Don't you do it."
Nemeth's right, because there's value right there.
They got to hang on to Nemeth after they trade Barry, though.
Oh.
Barbario for future considerations.
AJ Greer.
Greer's a possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you could
probably not 1-for-1, but if they do a bigger deal, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say there are some of these RFAs that they may be moving on from, like, I don't think Spencer Martin's going to garner a lot of attention, but it's just, if he could be included with something else to get something, I think they definitely do that.
They could get rid of Milosh too.
I don't think they want to do that.
He's free. He's free.
The hot take is it's Vancouver and Montreal that are yearning for Barry, by the way.
Yeah?
I could see actually Kerfoot if they went out and got a forward to say, here's someone back.
I think you're getting into marginal upgrade territory there, but yeah.
Yeah.
Because I could see, just money-wise, Kerfoot, they could pay him more than maybe they want to pay. That they could see that. They could justify it that way, I guess.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, they have, I forget if it's 15 left. Yeah, they have 15 RFAs left, and 10 of them are arbitration eligible. I mean, that's,
they have the least amount of contracts in the league, so...
Yeah, but I mean...
Has Steve Dangle posted about that yet?
If
he's too busy penning letters to 21-year-olds.
Yeah, he's too worried about his own drama this summer, but if he looked at Cap Friendly would show that the Avs have 6 NHL forwards signed.
Oh, God.
You could
That's half.
Joe Sakic deserves to be fired.
Like, they're going to start the season with 3 or 2 lines.
The best part of that is Gabe Bork is not one of them.
To the people that don't watch the team, is that any different than normal?
Yeah.
If they had Mikko, I would say no. But since they don't...
That's fair.
Here's one from Radio Avs fan. Who is the Avs 2C after Carl leaves? And
Prayers.
I think we should...
Kirby Doc.
TBD.
I
Cam and F.
Bowers, why not?
I mean,
probably
I do think
at that point, honestly.
I do think that that's definitely one of the reasons why they would like to get a center now, but it just he's Carl's leaving too soon. Uh, I
They
even
should
think
not have needed 5 years crutch of Carl Soderberg.
All right,
I don't think he's
They're getting their money's worth.
Yeah, Carl's really good. I mean, I have
No,
no
he's
problem
fine.
with
I'm
what
not
he
complaining
does.
about him. I'm just saying, what are we going to do after Carl is not like
Do
this
you-
new issue.
let's say let's say they take it forward and they're 2 years out, right? Can you get through this year with Soderberg, pray for the next step from one of Jost, Kerfoot, and Comper, and then have them as your 2C for a year?
Yeah,
If
think so.
you have something on the wing.
Well, sure. If you're not getting something at center this free agency, the Avs should get something on the wing. They're not going to go get nothing, or if they do, I'll be really disappointed. But
I mean, I don't think that the center options are really there anymore, are they?
Stasny.
you could,
No, I mean as far as UFA.
you could convince yourself into Joe Pavelski can still play center or something dumb, but
what is this renaissance of 33-plus-year-old players that people are lusting after? I mean, what
they're the
happened
only
to younger,
ones that aren't-
faster? How quickly we have forgotten.
Because they're the only ones that aren't going to cost $10 million.
well, who besides Pavelski do people want that are old?
Corey Perry.
Oh God,
Ugh.
no.
I'm not going to say a lot of people want him,
Please,
but
God, no.
No way.
I mean,
You
I
could
could see
sign
the
him-
Avs being interested, like, if Corey Perry was just dead set on playing for the Avs and was willing to take a 1-year, $1 million deal or something. But, I mean, like, actually saying, like, hey, let's sign Corey Perry and see what happens. I don't see that.
I don't think. I mean, my thing with Stasny and Pavelski is that, the problem with old people is that they get slow. I'm noticing it personally myself.
Yeah.
But those guys have always been slow. So it's like I don't really think they're going to slow down that much.
I worry more about that with Stasny. With Pavelski, again, he's brings something that the Avs don't have a lot of, and the dude that can get to the front of the net and just stand there and magically touch pucks. So
I mean, Landeskog was pretty good at that this year.
he was very good at it. But add that to your second line too, and all of a sudden, now all of your billion-point shots are a threat, even when Landy's not out there.
That's what.
Yeah, but I mean, I think
that's why
Evan
they'll
makes
get
a,
Anders Lee.
Yeah, I love.
I think Evan makes a good point about Stasny though, because I mean, when you're getting Stasny to be your second line center, you want him to be, I mean, not exactly Carl, but you want him to be able to, do what he did several years ago when he was with the Avs and be a good two-way center. And I just think that's going to get tougher and tougher for him if he's losing some mobility.
It's only 2 years too. I mean,
It-
that team's got to do something to get rid of some money. I don't know what they're going to
Yeah.
do.
I think they'll just sign Stastny after the 2 years. He'll have like the sunset contract come back.
He's in Denver this weekend.
It's gonna be weird
perfect
in
time.
2025 when the Avs down the middle are McKinnon, Duchesne, and Stasny.
Exactly. Yep. It's
The
gonna
boys are
happen.
back in town.
Yep.
It's going to be
The
like
old
2008 when Foote and Forsberg came back.
For 2 games.
They can have a miracle year reminiscence.
Yeah, I think they have to. I mean, you mentioned Donsko. I guess I'm fine with him, but people didn't like Como. I think he's very similar. He tries way too
See,
much.
I loved Como, so
I like Como too, but there's a bunch. I mean, it's always like, dude, you're not that good. Like, stop trying to go through everyone or hold on to the puck too long.
Right now, I typed this out on the Discord earlier today, but my plan is Plan A, Panarin, Plan B, Anders Lee, Plan C, Joe Pavelski, Plan D, probably like trade Barry for something, and
Kreider.
then not Kreider, really. Don't love him, but
I hate him.
I
Yeah.
think it would be It's a pending UFA for pending UFA.
And
It
then
wouldn't be the worst.
Plan E will be the plan that ends up happening, where we go sign like a Brett Connolly caliber player, and I'm sad.
No, Edmonton's already knocked. Like they're waiting on its door right now.
Are they really?
Yeah. They're probably. I wouldn't be. I guess Nyquist wouldn't be totally surprised.
I don't hate Nyquist actually. I wouldn't mind him in like the Plan D category.
Yeah, but I mean,
Run out of letters like
30.
Plan Q.
Plan Q.
V for Varlamov.
Well, here's
There were
the
a bunch
thing.
of questions on here, like all these teams that are either in cap difficulties or they're just giving people away, like Philly and whatnot. Is there a good way for the Avs to take advantage of that?
Yeah, definitely.
There's been, and they obviously did it when they got Grubauer, which was good that they finally did it, but they haven't done it in really an aggressive manner like this.
All right.
You should say.
Let's say we want to help out Vegas, and we give them Tyson Barrie with 50% cap retained, and you take on David Clarkson and Colin Miller's contract. Do they add Wild Bill, and then what else do they have to add for the Avs to be happy with that?
He's got to keep going, right?
Yeah, right.
I thought you were done.
It starts with Wild Bill.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
and
like
then
Colin Miller. I mean,
what is it? Wild Bill in a first. Wild
doesn't
Bill
he run our site?
Top prospect.
I mean,
I think
Bill,
he's pretty good. So
he would be the perfect stopper. I guess I look at him as like a Soderbergh replacement, I guess. But I would probably, especially if we're giving up Barry, I would need more. Yeah,
right.
I'd ask for a first, or God, they trade away all their good prospects. I don't even know who they have anymore. Not getting Cody Glass, that's for sure.
they get to take Nick Hague to replace Timmy.
I wouldn't mind. I've always liked Nick Hague. Let's talk Barry to the Canucks for a second, just because that's that seems to be the hottest rumor, just because that's where everyone is. But
for a second, or you mean for a second? I was like, for a second.
No,
Earl's done with this.
You could be a minute, whatever. What I mean. It seems like what we were talking about earlier today was that the Canucks want Barry now for stuff that's later, and the Avs are like, well, we need stuff now, and they're like, how do we make this work? And it's a tough one to get around, because one of the sides has to give on either taking a futures deal, or the Canucks have to give in on giving up something that's a now thing.
It's the Canucks, so maybe they do it anyway, but Barry just doesn't seem like the smart thing for them to do at all. I don't understand it.
Well, I mean, they seem to want him and have for a long time, so I don't know.
I'm not trading him unless we're getting Horvat or Besser. There's nothing else on that team that excites me.
I mean, some futures might in a different situation, but I mean, I really do think you need at least something that's now, and not just like a bottom sixer out of it. You need something that's going to be productive now.
I guess maybe
and that's not Jake Virtanen,
because Barry grew up there, or grew up in BC anyway, right? So maybe they think they can extend him pretty easily. I don't know.
I think he would definitely sign there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He spends his summers there. I definitely think I don't think that's a concern. I think it's just Vancouver beyond those two guys I mentioned.
Right.
I mean, is Demko? I wouldn't want a goalie being the freaking centerpiece.
DiPietro.
I mean, I would take a goalie, but that not something that the deal would be built around.
Yeah.
Because they do have lots of goalies, so I mean, that is an area the Avs could use something, but that's that wouldn't be the part I'd want to be excited about.
Yeah, it's tough to see a match where you're getting now back. I think if you opened it up to futures or young prospects, I think you could find enough there. And I don't think you're getting like Horvat or Besser, anything that good.
What if you could get him, but the Avs would have to add?
Add what?
Depends.
That's the question.
What.
I don't.
I mean,
I'm not going to go that far into speculation.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I can't weigh things that well. It's like, would you do Barry in 16 for Besser? I mean, that just seems like no.
Yeah, easily. I think you would easily do to get that caliber of a player. I mean, you're talking about.
I'm not as a huge Besser fan, so I probably wouldn't. But I do think Horvat would be a number 2, so I would consider that. Plus, he's locked up on an awesome contract.
What's his
It's like
contract?
4 more years at $5.5 million.
What if you?
Yeah, it's gonna
throw in
look like a
Jones?
really, really good deal after this offseason.
Yeah,
What if it took Barry 16 and Joe's?
to get Horvat?
Yeah, like Horvat or
I
Besser.
don't love that.
No, that's just too
Probably
much.
I
wouldn't,
still
but
think I.
I mean, when you consider what you can get for Barry without adding to him,
I
just
don't
on the
see
open
that.
market,
That's the thing is, I don't think you're getting a ton for Barry.
How
Unless
the Avs,
I don't care. I mean, it's just the giving up. I mean, you're going from a leverage trade to a consolidation trade.
right? It's
I'd
really
like
you're
to stay
hard.
also
away from
getting
consolidation.
a top young player that you're gonna have during your window for the next decade.
The Avs aren't in a good spot to be giving up more roster players than they're getting, though.
Yeah, I mean, I
But
don't
it's
mind
Joe's.
consolidating 2 picks this year, or pick like a pick this year, pick next year, kind of thing.
And I know I'm the asset queen, but I mean, if we're talking about 16 Jost and 1 year of Barry, I
I just think 2
I don't
roster
think
players
that's
is too much. You have to replace
what is
both of them
what is
somehow.
Jost? You don't even know what Jost
He's
is.
just a little boy. I don't
He's
know.
the 30 point something until he's not. I mean, I'm not saying he's trash, but I'm saying if him in a deal moves the needle.
I mean, for the Avs, 30-point guys don't exactly grow on trees, so
Yeah.
So everyone shouldn't be eager to get rid of
Scoring
Kerfoot.
30 points is hard on the Avalanche.
are people that eager to get rid of him? Like, I don't know that they
Who,
are.
Kerfoot?
I think the people that want to trade him think he has more value than he does.
Yeah, I mean, I keep Jost because I think he has more value to the Avs than on the open market.
I mean, no, I wouldn't throw him in. Just throw him in.
I don't think he's got much value either way. That's my thought.
I think this
I
is his
tend to
last
agree.
year where the pedigree will get him value because he played up there in BC in Kelowna, in the Kelowna area, and then Penticton. It's almost like a hometown deal there too. I think if you're gonna move him, this is the last year that you can really use that 10th overall to.
I think it's too late already, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think
I
people
think
are.
that ship sailed the second they had to send him down to get him going.
Yep.
I think this is the last summer.
I-
If you wait
I-
one more
I would-
year,
Now that I think about it, I would consider it just because, I mean, if you're bringing in Horvat, that's what you wanted Jost to be anyway. I don't know. I think Vancouver Dream is gone anyway, just because I think they're going to be stubborn.
Probably. Hey, supposedly they want to bring in Chia, though, so anything could happen.
that is
God.
true.
Imagine announcing that on the draft floor. We've just hired Peter Chiarelli.
Oh, that would be the best.
Are you not entertained?
In Vancouver, they come out for pick 10, and Chia steps up to the mic to make their pick.
Hi!
The chorus of boos would be amazing.
He was definitely in Boston. That thing happened too.
But Montreal, are we gonna flog that one?
Yeah, let's flog that a little bit, just because that seems to be their hot rumor.
What are they? They don't have anything
Yeah,
either.
right. There's not a lot that the Avs want from these teams.
It's like the
I don't
old
want Drouin.
Drouin conversation.
I would not take Drew.
I wouldn't mind him, but
Kakaniemi. I take that.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I'll definitely take him, but yeah, I mean, like Paling would be nice. I don't think they.
I think it's an interesting thought, Paling for Barry.
That team is so. That's like
I
the
think
most
it would be tougher.
average team in the NHL right now.
to guarantee that he would sign there. Vancouver, you could definitely, like we said, you could see it, so maybe that does bring his value up. But Montreal, I could see that where he'd be like, yeah, I'm going to play here and we'll see.
That's true.
Barry to Winnipeg for Ehlers. They can have Jost too.
Can they have 16 and Jost for Ehlers?
How about
Barry 16 and Jost?
for Montreal? How about something around Gallagher?
I'd rather have
He's
Dano.
I think Gallagher's gonna fall apart at some point here soon.
Yeah.
I mean, he's only got 2 years left on his deal, anyway, is what I'm saying. But
eventually, those guys break.
I think if you're trading with Montreal, I mean, it's like you've got to get either Paling or Dano. I mean, you've got to get one of their NHL. Well, Paling. He's projected to be by them. I like Dano's game a lot. I think Dano would be a really good fit on the Avs, but he's such a key to a lot of what they do.
I keep hearing you're not saying Dano. I was like, what are we going back to?
I know.
Go Dano.
Dano.
Dan Alt.
That the Montreal reporter who was in the press box in the playoffs said he was going to vote for him for the MVP, but I didn't look at the voting if he got an MVP vote.
Oh, I'll have to look at that later.
He was very good. I mean, he did a lot for them.
He was pretty high in the Selke, I saw.
Yeah. No, he would be a great add to the Avs.
Would he?
I think so. Yeah. Like if you're thinking about replacing Carl Soderberg now, that's a guy that would be an excellent younger replacement for that.
So would you do him straight up for Barry?
I mean, that's tough. I forget what Dano's contract is, but
2 more years at $3 million.
And how old is he?
He'll be a UFA.
Oh, okay, so he's like 25.
26.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's fairly young.
I think that's a fair. I think you could see a deal like that.
Maybe a pick back from Montreal.
So you guys like Dano, but not Gallagher, huh? Okay.
I know Gallagher scores
I don't like
a lot
anyone
more
on that team. Except for the one guy they won't trade.
I don't think they'll trade
Well, that's
Max
right. You're
Domi either.
You're a former
Yeah.
Ottawa fan, so you would like the Habs anyway.
Well, no, it's just I think that team is completely just average. Like, there's not anyone on that team that really stands out to me that I would really want. But I guess we have no idea what Barry's actual value is after seeing the Trouba trade and stuff like that.
That's a fair point too.
That's what I mean. That's why I think it's overly optimistic to think it's just going to be some kind of bonanza if it's traded.
Did you see Sakic said something like, "Oh, I have talked to other GMs, but it's not necessarily about trades." It's like, what are you talking about? Like Barry's hobbies to other teams? Like, what are you talking about? What does that even mean? He got a new dog.
Maybe it's just asking who's going to offer sheep Miko.
To
make him
actually
Ranson,
do something.
Right?
Yeah.
Telling the Florida guys that he's really into airboating or something. I don't know.
We asked all the other teams what their price would be for extending Barry for 7 years. And that's what we're going to offer
him. What would you offer Sheep Mitch Marner for? No, just kidding. Let's not talk about that. Oh. All right,
offer sheets don't happen anyway.
Yeah. We've run through our questions and whatnot.
Barry for Line.
Trade is 1 for 1.
I'd do it. Liney would be fun.
I'd say the last thing I want to ask you guys is how confident are you sort of on a 0 to 100 scale that this would actually happen during the weekend, a Barry trade?
I didn't expect anything, and then everything came out today. So who the hell knows?
I'd still say like 20 or 30%.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Maybe less.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Unless the thing that would make it a coin flip is if the Avs decide they're willing to go for a futures deal. But if they don't do that, I struggle to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen now. If they get through this weekend, it's like 5% probably.
Well, I think when you get a little bit, I think once everyone makes their qualifying offers and everyone knows what the RFAs are going to be like, and the cap gets exactified, even though I know pretty much what it is. I do think there's a little bit of a window around the first, but I don't know. I think it'd be fun if it happened. I just 40%.
I don't know. I'm
really
kind of ready
optimistic.
for like a straightforward. I know they need to do it though. If they're gonna do it, they need to do it. So just do it if you're gonna
Even if
do
they
it.
don't, the great thing about this weekend is like we haven't had 2 picks in the first round since 2011.
Knock on wood, Earl. Knock on
Yeah.
wood.
Well, I mean, even if they end up trading one of them, and it's still it's going to be excitement twice on
Yeah.
Friday night.
It
I
should
think
be a
they're
big
gonna-
draft for them.
I think they're going to do something, but I just don't. There's going to at least be a trade. I would guess it's the 16 pick involved.
Yeah.
But the Barry stuff would still surprise me just because until Sakic is proactive, I'm not going to believe it. Like, to me, it's shit or get off the pot right now with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a lot to do. A lot.
If they don't trade him before July 1 and he's not extended by like July 10, it's a problem.
Yeah. And then
They
that's
have
tough
to know
because
what he wants.
they have to sign a
Yeah.
bunch of other people then, and then there's vacation, and who's got the time?
And there are 5 arbitration cases that they'll surely have.
10 maybe. Like I said, that's you gotta wonder who they qualify. Like, what are they gonna do with Sven?
I think he's
Nothing.
gone.
Walking, yeah.
I think there's a reason why he got engaged before the qualifying offer deadline. Let's just put it that way.
Go house hunting in Moscow.
He just got engaged. He needs guaranteed money.
Some
I think
team
he
will
needed
give him
a-
a contract.
He needed to lock up that side piece for the adventure.
All right.
Well, I think unless anyone has anything further they want to bring up, or
I guess just finally, what do you want to see from the draft? I guess just wrap it up. Either certain player do something, certain positions. Just what would you call a good draft? Like what do you want to see?
I think for me, a continuation of the way they treated the later rounds last year, and sort of went for higher upside, and stayed away from the safer picks. We still don't know how that's going to turn out, but I do think that's what they're going to need to do going forward. If they do that and take Byram, I think it's going to be a great draft.
Yeah. I would say at least one forward in the first, at least 2 defensemen in the top 100 that have puck moving ability. And then take some shots.
Vlasic.
Take shots in the later rounds. Not Vlasic.
Not Vlasic.
I mean, for me, it's just I don't expect them to take Byram, so I want them to come away with 2 of those top 9 forward guys and be aggressive and get setting everything up down the line.
I'm trying not to get my heart set on that, but it seems like it'd be so easy to do, right?
Yeah. I guess I could say either one or the other. Either take Byram or be aggressive and at least pair the forwards. Either have a good 1-2 punch with the forwards. I think
D at 16
either
just looks less and less appealing, honestly.
So yeah, if either one of those happens, then I think that would be an excellent first round. Like I said, I kind of hope maybe they take some earlier Euros in like rounds 2 and 3. Maybe take some CHLers in the later rounds. I want them to have a good draft. If they move around the board, that's fine, but I want them to keep the idea of having the really high, like 4 or 5 picks.
I like it.
So please have a good draft. They need it. They do.
All right. Shout outs for everyone.
Read my draft article if you haven't. It's up on Burgundy Rainbow. The Avalanche draft plan. I'm going to have a mock draft out in the morning. We'll see how wrong I am. And we will have lots of draft coverage and development camp coverage.
Yeah.
So we do not go dark in the summer.
Yeah, that's the two things I want to shout out. Once the picks are finally in, I will have a shift by shift at least one of every player we take, assuming they don't play in the Czech under 19s like Earl wants. So if you want to get a look at them, there will be an opportunity to do that. And the other thing is the development camp. I will be there every single day, including the game up in Fort Collins. So if you guys want to come hang out and talk hockey with us, it's always a fun time to sit and ogle the prospects and chat. I'm not sure, Evan, are you going to be at any of that or?
I can't go Wednesday, or no, I think I will be there Wednesday, but not Thursday. And I'll probably be a little late on Friday, but not going to Fort Collins though.
All right, well maybe Wednesday then.
Yeah.
Come and chat
Yeah, I
with
should
everybody.
be there Wednesday too. Probably Wednesday and one of the other days. I haven't decided yet.
Yeah.
And Evan, any shout outs for you?
Shout outs? No, not really.
Okay.
At least throw your Twitter handle out there.
I'm not. I mean, I'm gonna spend the whole summer just probably posting dumb crap. So no one needs to follow me this summer.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Appreciate having
me.
you come hang out.
If you need the perfect "It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia" gift for the occasion,
I've got one.
look up this man.
I got plenty lined up.
And we'll have. I will be putting out some of the graphs and whatnot that Google put together for our survey throughout the day tomorrow. So
Oh,
we will
nice.
see some representations of how this all played out. But other than that, thank you
And
all
thank
for
you,
joining
whoever's
us.
still listening.
Yeah.
We appreciate you
fun,
all.
and we'll see how it all turns out tomorrow night. We may do something like this tomorrow night. We'll definitely be here chatting in at least either the GDT or the draft room, and it might be fun just to get everybody in the regular talkie channel too. So goodbye and good luck.